started going to Ivy Tech. So me and Ike and my buddy Atkins, we got a house. This is when your mom had that store downtown,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go into my Aunt Margie's, see if we can find some cool beer signs. Man, she had them everywhere, and of course she, oh, you can have them. But dude, I had like these Budweiser signs that were just freaking awesome.
Were they like barrel ends? Did you
No,
have any of those?
no, it was like
Big beer.
frame, like the beer.
It's the Sick Show. It's the Sick Show.
It's the Sick Show.
So I started collecting beer signs pretty early on. Might as well go ahead and get geared up here, brother, because we're already going.
Well, we got nothing to talk about now.
We got plenty to talk about. But, so, and let me know if your headphone level's all right, if I need to bring it up or down or whatever. So, oh, that's fun.
It's perfect.
There we go.
What's the sensitivity? Is this good right here?
Yeah, about softball.
All right.
I used to tell everybody about a softball size. Not like this, like this.
It's a big softball.
It is. It's like the 16-inch softball. It's the funky ones. It's the Chicago style. But so yeah, I started collecting beer signs when I was probably I had to be 12 because we were still living on Chestnut Street. And this is when Ben and Carolyn owned the homestead. So when they would like phase out a sign from the bar area, they would ask my dad. You know, my dad was a regular at the homestead if he wanted it.
Yeah.
Well, he started bringing them home. I started hanging them in my room at 12. And you'd think I'd be a raging alcoholic, you know, and a beer lover, but I'm not. I don't like beer. Beer has never been my thing.
Yeah.
I'll drink it, you know, just to be a part of the social group. But if there's vodka available, you know, that's my route. But so
At 12, most kids are collecting Hot Wheels.
right. Well, I was
like
that. I had those too, and I had bicycles, and you know, I was kind of a collector from the beginning. But beer signs, I had probably 40 of them, from you know little ones, keg ends, like they were plastic.
Yeah.
The keg ends were plastic, but I had this big, beautiful Budweiser Clydesdale mirror that was probably at least 3 foot long. That's probably
Yeah.
3 foot.
I bet that's the one I had.
It had to be.
So it had, like, the frame was beautiful
Yeah.
in itself, but then the lettering was all red. It had the Clydesdales. Oh, it was incredible.
Yeah.
Your mom's like, you can just take it.
That's probably why, you know.
I wish I knew where that was at. I don't even know what I did with
That
it.
would be a cool pickup right there. Downstairs in the garage, I've got her store sign on my garage wall, and then we had this sign outside, and I didn't realize where it was. I remembered this Hartford City Road sign that we'd had forever, but I couldn't remember where I seen it, and I I was going through pictures with Joe a few weeks ago, and found it. Found a picture of it. It was hanging on her swing set outside on our house on South Cherry Street. But yeah, but I've been a collector my whole life. I've kind of it goes from one thing to another. I get kind of I don't know, kind of lasered in on some things. You know, for a while I was doing when I was DJ or in a band, I was very focused on buying music equipment, and then some of it I would buy it to resell it
Right.
to make a little bit of cash to buy the next thing that I was looking for. So we always had a garage full of speakers for a few years. We had these speakers that were that I bought from a guy up in Fort Wayne. I can't remember his name now. He owns an RV service up there. But I bought these huge, you know, bigger than a refrigerator size speakers. And there were 4 of them. I ended up selling them to a guy in Nebraska or Iowa. And I had to take them over to R&L Carriers in Muncie, have them palletize them and ship them to him. Sold them on eBay. It's crazy.
Gee whiz.
I made a few $100s off of them. I bought some monitors, some Yamaha 12-inch monitors off a couple guys at a pawn shop in South Bend one day. I walked in. I was always going in there just seeing if I could find a deal. You know,
So do you buy this stuff to like flip it, or do you
Yeah.
think like, oh, I want this,
I-
and then you get tired of it and you're like, I'm done with it, I'll sell it.
kind of both.
Yeah.
Those worked as our some monitors for us for a while. I think I may have been in the band Cuffed at that time, so they were our stage monitors. But I knew I wanted 15-inch. You know what I mean? I wanted something different than those. They actually ended up being incredible stage monitors. I mean, I put them right next to me, and we were golden.
I'm gonna turn this off.
You getting a phone call, man?
Yeah, it's
It's
these
tough.
spam calls, dude.
Do you get a lot of them?
Oh, I probably get at least 15 a day, and it'll be like from Kokomo. Like this one says Kokomo.
Oh, that's
I'll
gotta
get
be
one that'll
it.
say like Crawfordsville.
Don't you love that?
No,
So anywho, I would buy this stuff to use it, and then eventually knowing I was going to resell it to upgrade. That was the goal, and that's the whole reason I bought those huge speakers was to upgrade.
right?
I got them at a great price, and then I was able to resell them, even shipping and everything. You know, out to the
What did it cost? Do you remember what it cost to ship?
like
something like
$400, which is actually pretty cheap. To get it palletized and shipped, it was like $400,
Yeah.
but that guy paid for it. You know, I told him, "See, you're gonna have to pay." I bought a bumper for a truck one time for an old Chevy truck that I knew I wasn't going to use. I bought it just to resell it. Ended up selling it to a guy in California.
that? Just because you knew somebody's looking for this. bumper.
Yeah. So I bought the bumper, put it on like a C10 Facebook page,
Right.
and sold it to a dude out in California who was looking for one that was already patinaed to put on his 63.
Huh.
And he was like, "Dude, that's the patina I'm looking for." So, man, I'd love to sell it to you. And he said, "Well, I'll pay for shipping. I'll pay for the ride if you'll
Right.
sell it for this." I said, "Absolutely." Sold it to him, made, like $50 off of it. He paid for shipping. I dropped it off at Muncie and UPS. Dude, a bumper that I just kind of folded up a bunch of cardboard around and shipped it out to California. You know,
That's crazy.
I'm always looking for something. The chair you're sitting in, I found on Facebook Marketplace.
This is a great chair.
I love that chair. I drove to Dayton to buy that chair. I actually spent some money on that chair. But I spent about a quarter of what it would have cost me new.
Yeah.
And then there's two more downstairs. There's two leather chairs downstairs. I bought them all at the same time, basically. The other two came out of Noblesville. The two downstairs, I got paid $80 for the pair of them. The guy wanted 100, and of course I couldn't pay what he was asking.
You got to bring him down a little bit.
Something.
Yeah.
So I gave him $80. First place I went to was a leather shop out in Kamak. There's a guy out there that sells.
Yeah, that's my neighbor.
Dude, love that guy.
Yeah.
He's incredible.
Quinn.
Yeah,
Gwen.
Gwynn's.
Yeah.
I think it's Gwynn's.
Yeah, it is. Gwynn's.
So he gave me some leather conditioner and some ideas on how to change the color. They were orange when I bought them.
These were?
That wasn't. That's how I bought it.
This is great.
Dude, I love that tobacco color.
Gummies kicking in.
Is it? Oh, bro, don't be falling asleep in here, man. So anywho, I've been a collector forever, and I get it honest. My mom was a collector. She was a picker before pickers was a picker. Her and Kay Tapman be in dumpsters, getting stuff out
Right.
of dumpsters, man. It was
I
crazy.
always loved when we had coffee at your house
Oh, dude.
because it was like, what kind of treasure are we going to have this week? I remember your mom had that Jordan versus Bird
Oh
on
yeah,
computer.
yeah.
Dude, I loved playing that game. I loved it when there was coffee at your house.
Everybody says that.
Oh, I did.
It was so rare that
Yeah.
it happened. Maybe that's why.
How do you think your mom would be today, knowing that like now there's eBay, there's Amazon, like all this
Dude.
stuff that she would have access to?
God, man,
Do you think?
she'd be killing it.
Yeah, she would.
She'd be killing it.
There's no doubt.
They would have to change it to Facebook Margie Place.
I'm on Margie Place again.
Getting on Margie Place. She would own that thing.
Yeah,
Like that would have just opened up so many doors. And she was also a natural nibshit. So
Yeah.
she would have been on that thing. She would have known everything going on in the scanner. She would have been running the scanner page,
Right.
Instead of somebody else. She always had her scanner on. We knew what was going
isn't
on.
that crazy? I remember Grandma Jones had a scanner
Yeah.
down there on Cherry or Kickapoo.
Yep. Yeah.
Listening to that thing.
Oh man. It's crazy.
44, 45. Grandma will be like, what was that, Bob? Oh God, here we go again.
That's right. Oh, is that down there on? Yep.
They were just down there 2 hours ago.
That's right. And it's just so bizarre, So I hope Toby shares this photo album I found that has your grandma Jones's writing in it. It's her photo album, and it's old pictures. I don't know if you care about that crap or not.
Oh yeah, I love that stuff.
I love being able to look back and see, seeing a picture like that of my mom
Right.
and then seeing my daughters in that picture.
Right.
They just resemble her in a lot of ways, and they resemble Jennifer and her family too. It's really interesting how our kids pick up. I see
Yeah.
your girls, and I'm like,
Oh.
oh my God, we know who they was.
They're so blessed.
Give
You know
me
what I
a
mean?
break. Thank God
All
for
this.
their mama.
For real. Man.
So it's just really cool to me to see that stuff, and I hope they share it with you.
Yeah.
If not, I've got it all digitally. You'd have to wade through a bunch of other crap, but there's a lot of cool stuff in
If
there.
Uncle Toby has it, I'm sure he'd be willing to
Yeah,
let me look at it.
I just handed it off to him maybe 2-3 weeks ago, but good stuff, man. So what's been going on with you?
Trying to stay busy.
Yeah,
raising
hard is that?
kids.
is it hard to stay busy in the wintertime with with your work?
It's so funny. I just made a post. I don't know if you saw this on Facebook. I was always told, I've always had for like the last probably 8 years, I've always had a manager and a booking agent kind of just taking care of my stuff. And in the wintertime, I was always told it slows down. And I would always freak out, especially now that I've got 4 kids,
Right.
a wife. It's not just
Mortgage,
me. Like
yeah.
when it was just me, it's like, whatever, it's time off. This is great. But now it's like, this is part of our income. I need to work. Well, last year, my manager and I split ways. He did my bookings and I took over. And I have not slowed down one bit. Like I'm just as busy now as I was in the summer. I think this last weekend and this weekend coming up have been the only 2 weekends I've had off all year.
Wow.
Not like 2024,
Right.
but all of last year I didn't have a single weekend off
Wow.
last year, except for in the wintertime. I think I had one show in December last year, but not this year. So I think it's just a matter of like, kind of how hungry are you? If you really want to work, there's plenty of places out there.
Yeah.
They might not be where you want to play. Like there's some bar gigs where it's like, man, this is rough.
Sure.
But then there's other ones where it's like, I could do this every freaking weekend.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it gets frustrating. Like you and I were talking earlier this morning about sales, and you get these, it's like fishing. Like
That's
you get
exactly what it
you
is.
get somebody that's biting on it and you're ready to set the hook, but they're just kind of nibbling and don't want to commit to it. And then finally, when you get them to commit, you set the hook, and man, it's like my wife told me yesterday, you're so addicted to it. And I am. Like I
get it.
am totally addicted to, like, dude, I'll shoot off 20 emails a day
Yeah.
to different venues around the country. And if I get one response back, it's like I'm honed in on that, and that's like, okay, there it is.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try and set the hook. It's so addictive.
What's the furthest you've traveled?
Australia.
Okay.
With Billy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we were over there for about a month.
Oh wow.
But the first 2 weeks, I think that was my second year with Billy Ray. So he actually flew us over there 2 weeks early and just gave us a 2-week vacation in Australia. He put us up in, I think we were staying in Sydney.
Okay.
Right on the bay. We all had our own suite in this high-rise building, and we were just there for 2 weeks. He gave us like $60 a day per diem to just kind of go out and eat and drink, be merry. So yeah, probably Australia is the farthest that I've traveled to.
What about on your own?
Muncie.
Muncie. Yeah, that's rough, man.
It's terrible.
I mean, to go, you're kind of in Yorktown, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and then to have to go that 6 miles.
Yeah, it's rough.
Yeah.
It's a lot of planning.
Yeah.
No. California.
Okay.
I started off last year and played for, oh my gosh, dude. It was at this super well-known golf course. I'm not a golfer,
Sure.
but it's like the most famous. I didn't even know what I was doing. But they had offered me the show, and they were like, if you've got 2 songwriter friends that you'd like to bring them, and we'll pay them too. So my buddy Kenny P, he's a golfer. I didn't know that, but I'm like, hey, we got this gig. You want to go out to California? Pebble Beach.
Pebble Beach. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. In my head, it was Stony Brook, but I think
No.
that's one that's on the Wii, or not the Wii, but my Quest.
It was Pebble Beach. So we fly out to California, and he's like, "What are we doing again?" And I said, "We're playing some golf course."
I like how you said, we fly out to California. He says, what are we doing out here again?
I mean, that's legit.
That's hilarious.
How I mean, that happens all the time. But I'm like, we're playing this thing for golfers at Pebble something, and he's like, "Are you talking about Pebble Beach?" I was like, "Yeah, that's it." And then he's like, "Dude, do you know what we're doing? Like, actually, what we're doing?" And it was like the pro-am, so it was like celebrities
Yeah.
and real golfers.
Oh,
So
that's
like,
awesome.
I can't remember who. Chevy Chase was there. Man, I can't. There
Sure.
was just tons and tons of.
I'm sure Bill Murray and
Bill Murray was there.
he's at a lot of those.
Hootie,
Oh yeah.
Darius Rucker,
Darius
he
Rucker.
he was there. There was all kinds of people.
That's
It
awesome.
was pretty fun. Yeah, it was fun. But that happens a lot. Like, I remember. I mean, even as a kid, this is all I've ever wanted. Like, when people would say, like, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" It was always, I either wanted to play in the NFL,
Mm-hmm.
which
Yeah.
that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Like maybe a water boy,
Right.
or I wanted to be a rock star. I played the drums, and then watching you
Yeah.
and Bucket,
Oh
like
man.
watching my dad play the drums and my grandma played the keyboard.
Yeah.
Like, I've always just had this desire to be a
Jason
musician.
played a mean keys
Like,
too.
yeah, still does.
Does he? Good.
Oh yeah, he'll sit down and start playing this like Garth Brooks or
Wow.
some Poison, and it's like, God dang, man, it's incredible.
He had a good teacher.
Well, who was his teacher? Do you know?
Your grandma.
Is that who taught
Yeah.
him?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I almost went down and took lessons too, but I wanted to be a drummer.
Man, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't want nothing to do with keys. As far as I know. I mean, that's where he started anyway, was
Yeah.
with your grandma.
I'm not surprised. Grandma could play.
Yeah. She was incredible, man.
She was great.
Playing the organ at the church and
Yeah, out there at Bethel Center.
yep.
And then when we moved to Grace United, she quit playing. And she was in the choir. My dad was in the choir too.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I remember that.
but yeah, just like growing up around music, I always had a desire to be a musician. I don't even know where I was going with this story now.
Well, it doesn't matter because
Uh-uh.
that's what we do here. We just go on tangents.
Yeah.
I got to tell you a secret. Not only know Jason's aware of this. Back in the early 80s, probably third, fourth grade, my mom bought a drum kit. It was a red drum kit she bought at the rummage sale. It was a decent one. I don't remember the brand. But I was going to take drum lessons from a guy named Tim Baker who lived down the street. And he came down. I think he might have given me one or two lessons,
Yeah.
just the basic boom, pat, boom, pat.
Oh, yeah.
I probably gave it, all of 2% of my effort, because that's the kind of kid I was.
Gave
If
it
it,
the old
didn't,
college too.
if it didn't come easy, I wasn't going after it.
Right.
Something in me just didn't have that. I have so many different interests. Obviously, look around the room and it's just
yeah.
eclectic as can be. I have so many different interests. It's hard for me to really focus in. It's a skill. It's literally a learned skill I've had to acquire to be able to focus in on one thing and become really good at one thing rather
Right.
than, well, I want to just do it all. And so, but I was learning to play drums for, all of 2 lessons. And I had a dream. Your brother was going to play keyboards and we were going to be the next Police. We were going to be just a 3-piece and we were going to be the next Police. I don't know if I ever shared that with you
No,
or not.
I didn't know that at all.
Yeah, he probably didn't either. So Jason, if you're listening, could have been. Could have been.
This is what you
One-
could have been.
One of us could have been Sting too.
Right.
Sting-ish. Sting
More
Jr.
more like poke.
Poke. Oh, maybe. Yeah.
Poke.
Pinch. Poke.
Pinch. Yeah.
Owe me a Coke. Something. But anyway, yeah, so I wanted to drum as well. In 4th grade, I think it was 4th grade, we went to Mr. Sills. Mr. Sills came around and he was testing everybody for like music ability, like natural music ability. And I sit down, tried to do a drum beat, and I couldn't keep a beat. He would be like, "Do this, pop, 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 pop," and I couldn't pop, 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 pop.
Right.
It was terrible. And so he decided that I would probably be best suited for cornet. Well, cornet's usually the one with people with absolutely no talent because there's only two or three,
Right.
things going on there. And I didn't want anything to do with it. I didn't want anything to do with being a cornet player. I wanted to play the drums. And damn it, I was going to show him that I was going to be the best drummer ever. And I never played the drums again. We ended up selling that kit. So that's how I ended up learning to play the microphone.
When did you figure that out?
Probably sometime in high school. I remember singing along to songs, and I was like, man, I'm not too bad. I can hold a note. I can hold a tune. I understand timing. I think I could do something with that. And then I became a little bit more passionate about it after the hair band phase was over. I was not a fan of hair bands.
Yeah.
But I kind of honed my skills with Skid Row and some of these different ballads that were out there. I'd dance with somebody at the school dance and I'd sing and just kind of rubbing bellies and all that fun stuff.
Right.
And after high school, started singing in my car. I really got into Southern rock. I mean, I was obsessed with Southern rock for years. Like
Skinner, Allman Brothers.
oh yeah,
like
man.
that.
Like, and I'm that person too. I have to learn about their history.
Right.
So it wasn't just I'd learn about their music. I had to know where they were from. I had to know what their story was. I had to know, who are Dwayne and, who are the Allman Brothers and how did they end up, blah, 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 and, shooting each other or whatever in the foot. But I don't know if you know about that. Yeah.
Jeez.
They shot each other in the foot so they wouldn't have to go to Vietnam.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know if you're aware of that. I've been wanting to share that with you for a while, but I never have.
I've been meaning to tell you. Did you know?
I don't know if they shot each other, but one of them shot one of the other in the foot. So, yeah.
Hey, I've got, now that we're telling each other these deep family secrets. So, Aunt Kathy,
Yeah.
did you know that her cousin is married to Judy Van Zant, which was Ronnie's wife when he died?
Oh, wow.
Did you know that?
What? Yeah, I knew there was some connection there. I'd heard that
Yeah.
a long time ago, just forgot.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
That's craziness, man. It's the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
That's true. That we're all connected.
We are.
I agree with that 100%.
And especially with social media now, when you see Facebook and you're like,
Yeah.
we're all, you look at something and you go, oh my God, I have 422 mutual friends
Right.
with that person. And you go in there and it's like, holy crap, that's my cousin. And
Yep.
that's their cousin. What?
Yeah.
How'd that happen? But yeah, that's so interesting that I totally forgot about that.
Yeah. I don't know why I always thought that was like a pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm related to Freebird.
Well,
You know what I
ish,
mean?
ish.
It's my story.
And that's all that matters. So I don't know if you listen to the show, but I've shared, and I think it's interesting, Derek, that I'm going to share that Derek Jones is my cousin on my show, but I've never heard about Derek Jones sharing that I'm his cousin at his shows, but just putting that out there. And I've only been to a couple, 5 or so. I've got little tick marks over here of each one I've been to and dates, and I'm taking like selfies of myself at the stage.
At Puckett's.
Yes. Yeah,
I remember that
100%.
one.
Oh my God, sitting on the speakers. It was one of my favorite places.
I love
to
that
watch.
place.
One of my favorites, man. I was talking to somebody about that the other day. It might have been Pete Lentz. So Pete Lentz is out in, I don't know if you know Pete or not. He's 2 years younger than me. So he's a 94 grad. So he's a little bit older than you, but he is in a few different bands. He's in a band called Abacab, which is a Genesis tribute band. And then he plays in another band called Thurston Howell, and they do yacht rock. They all dress like Thurston Howell or the Captain.
Yeah.
And then he has another band or another group with him and a friend of his that do original stuff. And they do like a Twitch show, and they write their songs on the Twitch show with audience input. So
Really?
it's really interesting.
That's cool.
Yeah, you'll have to go back and listen to the episode. But Pete's a really interesting guy. He got started in music while at Ball State. He went there to be a music major, and one day sitting in the student center playing the piano, one of the people from Ball State said, "Hey, we have an event going on here in a little bit? Can you stick around and play for us?" And he's like, Yeah, okay. And then he realized, oh, I just missed my class. Yeah, I missed my other class. Might as well stick around.
Right.
And then he ended up getting paid for it. And like a couple days later, drops out of school because he was like, dude, I just got paid,
Right.
you know, and he became a musician, worked for Disney and
Oh, wow.
kind of went that route. But I think it's interesting how people get guided toward that next thing,
Yep.
you know? So how do you end up being a musician? You had the passion for it early on. I mean, it wasn't like wanting to be, the next police or anything, but
Yeah.
because clearly, Sting Jr. over here was,
Well, a lot like that dude. So I'd left for the military. And even when I got out, I had called home. And there was a guy that I was served with, and we were going to start a band together, and we were just going to stay in California, and start a band. And I remember calling my mom, and I said, "Hey, I don't think I'm going to come home. I want to stay out here in California, and me and my friend are going to start this band." And of course, my mom, like hell you are. And she said, "You need to get home, and if you're going to start a band and you want to do that, then you at least need to go to college and get a backup plan in case it don't work." And I thought, that's a pretty solid idea. So I came home, and then I started going to Ivy Tech, and I was living with two of my best friends at the time, and we always threw house parties, keggers in the basement.
yeah,
And our house would be full of people. Everybody be dancing downstairs. And then before I knew it, there would be no one downstairs, and I'm like dancing by myself. And I'd go upstairs, and there's two of my buddies, which I'm sure Jesse Hornbaker
yep,
and Red Batten,
yep.
sitting on my couch with their guitars playing and just jamming, and everybody's like in awe just watching them. And I'm like, man, that is the coolest thing. If I could ever learn how to play guitar, I don't think I'd ever put it down. And I had sang a little bit of karaoke while I was in the Navy,
Right.
just drunk karaoke.
Yeah.
But some of my buddies like, man, you actually got a pretty good voice. So anyway, fast forward to watching my buddies on the couch. I remember telling them, like, you guys think you could teach me how to play guitar? And they're like, yeah. So I went out, bought a $200 Fender guitar, and they taught me how to play. And while I was going to college, some of my classes were over in Anderson. I was living in Muncie at the time. So on my way, I would drive through Yorktown by this place called the Mr. Mouse.
Mm-hmm.
And they had this big sign on the front door, this big poster that said open jams every Thursday. And I was like, what is that? I knew like 3 songs. It was probably like
Right.
Sweet Home Alabama, Simple Man, and something else, probably like Long Haired Country Boy, just D, C, and G. So I walk in this bar. There's like 5 people there, and they all turn their head as soon as it's like one of those like locals, like
Yeah.
like a Western, like, and they all look at me, and I'm carrying a guitar, and I walk up to the bartender. It was Amy Young, and I said, "Are you guys doing open jams tonight?" She goes, "I don't know." And I said, "Well, your sign out front says open jam on Thursday." And she goes, "Well, we've just never had anybody show up." And I was like, "Okay." I
Nice.
said, "Well, I would love to do it." And she goes, "You need to go talk to the cook about the sound stuff." So we set up all the sound stuff. I ended up played for a little while, came back the next Thursday, did it again. And I had done it for probably about a month, going in there every Thursday. Well, then finally the owner of the bar sat me down, and she said, "Hey, we're starting to get phone calls. People calling up here wondering if that guy's going to be up here playing on Thursday." And she goes, "They're talking about you." And I was like, "Really?" And she's like, "Yeah." She goes, "How about would you be interested in having your own night?" And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." And she goes, "What would you charge?" And I'm like, I have no idea. Never even thought about like
Right.
making money on it. I was just having a blast. And I said, I have no clue. And she goes, "How about we give you $50? We'll feed you and you can drink all you want." And I'm like, dude, I thought I was George Strait.
That's right.
I really did.
There was a
Yeah.
time.
For real. Like I thought I was George Strait. And at the time I was driving a truck.
Derek Tritt.
I was driving a truck for Battery Express, which is also in Yorktown, um, delivering batteries for them. And so anyway, I started playing on Tuesdays at the Mouse for $50. Then I'd come back and still play on Thursdays. Well, then finally, the owner of the bar was like, "I've got an apartment upstairs. Would you be interested in just playing for rent?" I'm like, absolutely.
Wow.
So I started living upstairs. Well, then on a Tuesday, this other woman, she come in there. She's like, "I've got a bar in Muncie. I'd like you to come play. What would you charge?" And I'm like, "Okay, if I'm getting 50 here, maybe I can get 100 there." So I'm like, $100. And she's like, "That's a deal." So I'm like, "Oh my God." Well, then it just like, I don't know if word got out or what, but then Buffalo Wild Wings hit me up and they're like, we're wanting to do a bike night on Fridays. What would you charge? I'm like, 250. And they're like, "Okay." So then I'm like, I'm starting to make more money
Yeah.
doing this than I am driving a truck. And then it's like, then I started a band and was trying to do the full band thing. And then I've got all these people like, "Man, you should go down to Nashville." And I started to write a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, you know what? I don't want to be that guy that's like 60 years old working in a factory thinking, "Man, what if?
Right.
What if I just would have tried it? What if I just would have gave it a shot?" So I was dating a girl at the time and I'm like, "Let's go. Like, let's pack our bags." But honestly, let me rewind a little bit. So I started working for another company called Pritchett's Backhoe Service out of Newcastle. And we moved to Newcastle, me and my girlfriend at the time. We moved to Newcastle. We were staying in an apartment, and I had worked for Pritchett's for about a year. And he sat me down in his office, and he called me Junior for whatever reason. He said, "Junior," he goes, "You know what, man? You go to bed every night, and you think about and you dream about what stage you can step on next to perform." He goes, "I go to bed every night, and I think about what hole can I dig? Where can I dig next to make my dream bigger?" He said, "As long as I'm providing you a comfortable life, you're never going to chase that dream." And I was like, "Yeah, maybe." And he goes, "You're fired." And I was like, "What?" He goes, "You're fired." He said, "I love you." He said, "But you need to get down to Nashville and give it a shot." He said, "Go down there and give it 2 years. If it don't work, I'll give you your job back." That's the best thing that ever happened to me, was getting
Wow.
fired. So, dude, we packed our bags, moved down to Nashville. We lived in a hotel for about 4 months, blew through every penny that we had saved. I mean, I legit was on the streets with my guitar down on Broadway, just hoping people would throw in a 5 or a 10. And that was like, for real, like, I'm trying to get money so we can eat. And then finally landed a job driving a truck for Pepsi and gotten into an apartment. Things just it just felt like I was always at the right place at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
At certain parts. We had talked about Puckett's,
Mm-hmm.
and I 100% think that where I'm at now is all because of Puckett's. There's no doubt in my mind
Mm-hmm.
that place helped launch me and get me to the next step. It put me where I needed to be. And I know God had a lot to do with that, because he put the right people in that place while I was playing,
Mm-hmm.
I was playing it was like an open mic night on Thursdays again.
Mm-hmm.
And I found this place because I was driving for Pepsi, and it was out in the middle of nowhere. I mean,
It
you've
is
been
in
there.
the
Like,
middle
it is legit.
You pass
Like,
some really
yeah.
kick-ass houses on the
Oh,
way
yeah.
there. Oh my God, they're not houses; they're
Yeah.
estates. But
Oh, they're insane.
yeah,
Insane. Well, that's where all the stars live,
yeah,
because it's so far out there. But I walk in this place, and I'd never seen anything like it. And I'm like, this place is a dump. What is this?
right.
And they've got a sign on their window that says open mic on Thursdays. I get off work. I tell my wife, but my girlfriend turned into my wife, ex-wife now. Another God thing. It's so great. But anyway, I tell her, I'm like, there's this dump out in the middle of nowhere. They have open mic night. I think I'm gonna go give it a shot and just see what it's all about. So I go out there, and keep in mind, I hadn't played in Nashville a whole lot, just on the streets.
Mm-hmm.
So I go out there. This place is packed. I mean, it is like insanely, uncomfortably packed. And I sign up, and I'm like number 22 on the list. And it's like midnight, and I finally get to go. And before I'm going, I'm telling my wife, like, I'm not getting up there. Like, these people are so good. Like, this is insane.
Right.
So there was a lot of like, man, I got a huge dose of reality when I first moved to Nashville. Because when I'm up here, it's like, I'm surrounded by people that are like, you're so good, you're so talented, you're this, you're that. Like, oh my God, you're going to make it. And then you get down there and you're surrounded by people that I think are way more way more talented than what I am. So I'm like, I'm not getting up there and making an ass out of myself. I'm going home. And she's like, no, you're not. Get up there. Do what you got to do. Just do your thing. So I got up there and I played my 2 songs, and I got down, and this dude with a beard come up. He goes, what'd you say your name was? I said, Derek. He said, what are you doing tomorrow? I said, I got to work here in about 2 hours. I was driving for Pepsi. We had to start at like 3 or 4 in the morning. He goes, well, I'm hosting a writer's round tomorrow. I'd love for you to be a part of it right here. And I'm like, oh, I'm in. Count me in. Yes. So get home. Told my wife, like, I got invited for a writer's round at Puckett's for tomorrow. I'm so excited. And she goes, what's a writer's round? And I was like, I don't know. I really don't know, but I'm going to be a part of it. So I had to message the guy on Facebook, and I was like, hey, I'm new to town. Never heard of a writer's round. What is that? He's like, basically what it is me, you, and another songwriter will get up on stage. We'll play all original stuff, and we tell the stories behind our songs. I'm like, okay, that sounds perfect. So I play it, and then in the crowd, after we're done, this guy walks up. He goes, hey, like your stuff. I'm like, thank you. And he's looking at me like, do you recognize me? Do you know who I am? And I don't. And he goes, my name's Brian Fisher. I was like, hi, Brian. I said, I'm Derek. He goes, I got a show on the Discovery Channel. We're getting ready to relaunch. He goes, I'm needing a new theme song. Would you be interested in writing me a theme song? I'm like, yeah, what kind of show is it? And he said, it's about ATVs and side-by-sides. I knew nothing about side-by-sides or ATV. I barely could even spell ATV.
Right, it's tough.
It's hard. So I'm like, yeah, man, I would love to, but I really kind of need to know what your world is about. So he invites me out to his house. We hang out. We hit it off. I write him a song. We record it. He launches it on his show, and then he hires me and Tyler Farr to come out and do this like fan appreciation party in Pennsylvania. So we're out there playing, having a great time. It's an outdoor show. All the buses are like behind the stage, like in a circle with the campers. And in the middle of it's a big fire pit.
I'm gonna pause you.
Yeah.
We got to get some time frame in here. What's the time frame from arrived in Nashville to Puckett's to?
That would have probably been 4 years.
So from the time you arrived,
Yep.
What was the time from arrival at Nashville to first open mic at Puckett?
Probably a year.
Okay. From Puckett's to getting invited to this songwriting thing.
I'd say probably, from the moment I played Puckett's to the songwriting, that was the first night.
Okay.
That first open mic night.
So then we fast forward from there. How long are we talking about between when Brian comes up to you?
That would have probably been 2 years.
Okay. And I think I want to make sure I point that out because I think it's important. People think, oh my God, it's overnight.
Oh yeah.
It's not. How many nights did you play Puckett's? How many Thursdays in a row did you play Puckett's? You know, I mean,
years.
Yeah. And so it wasn't like I just happened to be there at the right time, right place. Well, you were because you were there every Thursday, grinding it out for nothing.
Yep.
But for the hope that next piece of the puzzle gets found.
Yep.
Yeah. So, all right. So now we played this show in Pennsylvania, buses behind the stage. All right.
Yeah. So we're sitting there, we're having a great time. And there's this big dude sitting next to me. My wife's there too. Like they flew us out. This was my first, like, man, this is like legit on the road. Like we flew here and we had a car pick us up. Yeah. Like, man, I went from George Strait making $50 a show to I don't even know what I'm making here, but I don't care.
I'm a star. I got 2 stickers on my guitar case.
Let's look at all my travel right there. So
One of them says Hartford City.
Pizza King. I do have a sticker on it that says I love Pizza King.
That's awesome.
We're talking about my. Can they see it?
No,
Probably
no,
not.
no.
We're
I
talking
don't,
about my
I don't have any
guitar case.
video, and
But-
I'm not that guy.
Anyway, we're sitting around this fire, and there's this big dude next to me. He was the cameraman for the show. He seemed to be pretty hands on with the Fishers. So the show was called Fishers ATV World.
Okay.
And he seemed to be like their right hand man, just a big burly guy. And he leans over and he's like, "Where'd you say you're from?" I said, "I live out in White Bluff, Tennessee." He goes, "I live out in Thompson Station, Tennessee. We're about 45 minutes apart." He said, "Why don't we exchange numbers? Let's hang out." I'm like, "All right, this is a good old boy."
Yeah.
I could tell he's from somewhere in the South. He had an accent. So we hit it off, man, and we're just BSing all night, taking shots. We get to our camper, me and my wife did, and she goes, "Man, that guy looked like Billy Ray Cyrus." And I was like, "Yeah, a little bit. He had a mullet, you know." So the next day, we're eating breakfast, and Brian Fisher, the host of the show, just out of nowhere, he goes, "You know who that guy is over here?" I said, "That dude?" He told me his name, but it was a night of drinking.
Sure.
He goes, "Well, his name's Mick Atkins," but he said, "That's Billy Ray Cyrus's little brother." And I was like, "No way." I said, "My wife and I just said, like, he looks like Billy Ray." So anyway, I start hanging out with this guy, and we are instant best friends. And it takes him about maybe 2 or 3 weeks before he finally tells me, like, Billy's his brother. And I never wanted to be like, "Man, could you
Right.
introduce us?" Like, I
Absolutely.
did not want to overstep those boundaries, because I'm sure he gets that all the time.
I'm sure.
So we become, I mean, I'm telling you, like, if you would have told me 6 years ago that Mick Atkins would not be the best man in my next wedding, I'd have said, "You're full of it." I was
Right.
like, that dude would take a bullet for me, and I would do the same. I'll explain what I mean by that later on. But anyway, we hit it off. He finally tells me he's Billy Ray's brother. That was about it. It took about 3 years of us being solid friends. There's a song that Billy recorded years ago called "We Fought Hard." It's an incredible song about 2 brothers that actually go to war together. One of them dies. And I covered it. And Mick took a video of me playing it and sent it to his brother. And it was like 5 seconds later, his brother calls and says, "Who is that?" And Mick's like, "That's my best friend." Mick, like, he could read his brother. Like, he legit said, "I'm going to record this. I'm going to send it to my brother. He's going to call." Like, he was like legit telling me, "This is what's going to happen." He's like, "And this is how I'm going to introduce you guys." So he calls and he's like, "I need to meet that guy." So I'm thinking, like, holy crap, I'm about to meet Billy Ray. And
Sure.
this is going to elevate my career. So we meet and we hang out, and Billy's just, dude, he's a funny guy, man. He's I don't know, he's just different. You know what I mean? Like, for somebody to be in the limelight that he's been in, especially with his daughter,
Mm-hmm.
like, there's just a different, like, everything for him happens for a reason. Like, he'd be like, "That S right there, you hung that for a reason by the window so God could shine his light on that S."
Oh, that's interesting.
Like, he's a very interesting man. So anyway, we're hanging out, and I get a call from him, and he's like, "Hey, can you come into the studio?" He's like, "I'm redoing this song. Would love to hear your vocals on it." I'm like, "Yeah, be right there." Walk in the studio, and this is the time in my career where it's like, I feel like I'm about to quit my job and really give it a shot, because, man, I skipped out on a whole portion of my life. But I went through a divorce, living alone, started working with Billy. He came in and sang some backup vocals for me on my first record. So he was returning the favor. He gave me a shout. He's like, "I'm going to redo this song, Tulsa Time. It's an old Don Williams song."
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, "Yeah, I know it." And I'm like at the verge of quitting. And I've got Mick and his wife, Ellen, who manage Billy as well. They're like, "You need to start an LLC to separate your personal stuff from your music stuff. So I'm like, all right, I want to come up with a clever name. All that to say, I walk in the studio, and there sits freaking Joe Perry
Mm-hmm.
from Aerosmith. And I'm like, what the heck is this guy do? Is this for real? So Billy's like, hey, man, I want you to sing some backup vocals. Joe leaves. Great to meet him. Sang my parts, come back in the next day to listen to it. Joe had no idea what I was doing there. He didn't know I was singing or what. He didn't know who I was, obviously. Come back in the next day. We're all sitting in the control room listening back to what we had done. And Joe's sitting there and, how PG do I have to be? No, okay.
Yeah.
Because I just want to be,
Yeah.
I want to say what he actually said.
Yeah.
So we're listening to it, and Joe goes, Billy, who's that singing background vocals? And Billy looks at me and points. He goes, that's Jones. Joe goes, well, turn up the fucking Jones. So I'm like, there's my business name, except the effing part.
Yeah.
So I created my business, Turn Up the Jones LLC, but Joe Perry from Aerosmith
That's awesome.
actually coined it. So anyway, at that time too, I was also working on my second album, Pray. And I remember leaving the studio, Billy come in, sang some songs, and I was telling Mick, like, man, I want him to listen to my first record. And Mick's like, don't do it, man, that's pushy. Like, don't give it to him. Well, I did it anyway. And he heard my song Free to Leave, and Billy fell in love with it. And so then as he's listening to my second record, as we're working through it, he's asking all these questions like, who's producing it? Who's playing guitar on it? And these were all my buddies. And I'm like, this producer and the guitar player is the same dude. His name's Chris Condon. He's an incredible player. Billy's like, when you get this thing done, you let me know, and I'd love to put together a tour. And me and you go out on the road. And I'm just sitting here thinking, this guy's full of it. There's no way he would do this. But I got it done. Walked into my job one day, put in my 2-week notice, had no plan, nothing. All I knew was I needed $1,000 a month to survive, to get my bills paid and to be able to eat. And that was it. Like pretty minimal expenses, really. So I quit my job, and I want to say it was about a week later, I got a phone call from one of my buddies starting a music venue. And he's like, I want you to take care of the music. I want you to find the acts, book them, and then you can play as well if you want. And he's like, I'll give you $1,000 a month, just put you on salary. And I was like, oh my God, done. So probably about maybe 3 weeks into that gig, I'm sitting at the bar. I get a call from Mick, and he goes, you sitting down? I said, yeah. He goes, well, Billy's a man of his word. And he said he put together a tour for the back part of this year. We got 25 shows on the book so far, wants to take you along. I'm like, are you for real? He's like, yep. He said, so let's do it. So, man, it's funny because while I was driving a truck for Pepsi, I would be sitting at a gas station at like 5 a.m, and I would look across the street at like a Walmart or a Kroger or a big parking lot, you know, and I would see these tour buses sitting there and these guys getting on at 4 a.m, high-fiving each other. And I'm just thinking, man, that's going to be me one of these days. That's got to be me. And so I got the call from Mick about going on tour with Billy, and he's like, our first show's in a month. So we got to rehearse, do all this. And I'm like, well, who's the band? He goes, well, he wants to use your band. So I get to call on my buddies and say, do you guys want to go on tour with Billy Ray Cyrus and be his band? And they're all like, absolutely. So our first bus call we had at a Walmart parking lot, and it was at like, I don't want to say it was like 11 o'clock at night, and we're unloading all of our gear, and these 2 tour buses are sitting there. Billy's got his own tour bus, and then the band and the crew's on another one. And I just start bawling. And I'm like, this is it, man. This is what I've been waiting on, just stepping on a tour bus, seeing what it's like. And dude, it was incredible to get to experience that, especially like with my buddies. Like,
Yeah.
it'd be different if it was just random dudes that I didn't know,
right.
but these were all my buddies, man. It was Chris Condon's still one of my best friends. Get to share that with him. And with Mick at the time. You know, him and I were so close, and we just sat there and hugged each other. And I'm just bawling, thinking, man, I can't believe this is where I'm at.
Yeah. When you thought sitting around the campfire, you'd made it,
For real.
you know?
Yeah. So it's always like when I think, am I peaked?
Sure.
Then something else happens. Like even throughout that, like bus calls and tour in Australia. And, well, then he calls and he's like, hey, I'm playing the Grand Ole Opry. You want to play the Grand Ole Opry with me? Absolutely. So I get to walk out and stand in the circle at the Grand Ole Opry, and Grandma and Grandpa came down for that
Yeah.
show, and having them in the audience, and my mom and dad and my brothers were there. Like it was like, where does it go from here? How does it get any better? And it does. Like now I've got a family,
Right.
and music is 90% of our income. That's all I've prayed for. You know, when I first met Megan, she was doing network marketing, and she was on the phone nonstop, like Zoom calls, meetings. And I felt like a single dad because she constantly had to work and hustle. And my music wasn't quite there yet, because I had, at that point, I had separated from Billy. I broke my arm, had surgery, they put pins and cables in my elbow, and they let me go because I had to miss some shows. So they found a replacement. And at that time, I'm like, man, what am I going to do? But then I'm like, you know what? Megan makes pretty good money. I'll be okay we'll be all right.
Right.
Well, then I start seeing like, man, she's like, she doesn't have time to tuck the kids in. She didn't have time to eat supper with us. She don't have time to eat breakfast with us. Like she is constantly having to work.
Right.
And she's a very business savvy person, and
She's a hustler.
oh my God, she is. And she's looking at my music, she's looking at my website, my Facebook page, and she's like, you have no brand. You need to brand yourself if you want your music to grow. Like you've been riding on Billy's coattails, but you're on your own now. And I'm like, you're right. So we start branding myself, and it's like I've just watched my business it's a business,
Mm-hmm.
and I've watched it grow. And I remember like we started praying super specific, saying, God, please let my music someday be our main source of income so Megan can just step away and be present. And 3 years later, I mean, music is 90% of our income. She doesn't have to do the network marketing. She still hustles. She still does hair, started a medical tattoo thing. But I do feel very blessed because I get to do this. I get to have my family and still get to play music. I say blessed all the time. A lot of people say you're lucky, but I don't think luck has anything to do with people that work hard.
Mm-hmm.
I'm blessed. I'm not lucky.
I heard luck. It was phrased as when opportunity and preparedness meet.
Yeah.
And I've kept that definition of luck in my head. So when I hear, man, you kind of lucked out. Yeah, I was prepared,
Right.
and the opportunity was there, and I
Right.
grabbed a hold of it. So I think for me, I was kind of the same way. I was like, dude, there's nothing luck about this.
Yep.
But I think when you define it in your own way, all right, I'll hear that.
Right.
So I think what interests me about this is it wasn't something where you got, and I'm sure there was frustration in there through all that process. Just
Tons. I mean,
Sure.
music, I believe music
it's
was-
unforgiving.
was the cause of my first divorce because I was so focused on music, wasn't focused on my marriage. And same with her. We moved to a big city, so she was focused on her career. I was focused on mine. But yeah, there's a ton of sacrifice. Like I still struggle with it today because I'm gone so much. Like I leave every weekend. Every time I grab my gig bag, Stevie says, "Are you leaving again, Dad?
Mm-hmm.
You leaving again, Dad?" That's really, really hard.
Sure.
I struggle with it.
I've had this conversation with others that, both Jennifer and I have pushed ourselves and pushed each other to attain, that next level of success. And everybody can once again, they get to define what success looks like. Man, I've said for a long time, if you identify success as living in a van down by the river, man, go be the best damn van living down by
Right.
the river person there ever was. Go live that dream. If your dream is to, you know, whatever it is, go after it. My problem is sometimes I'm not sure what mine is.
Right.
And it kind of goes back to where you were talking earlier about I knew I wanted to either be an NFL player or a musician, a rock star. I knew I just want to be a dad and a husband.
Right.
And I want to be the best dad and husband I could be. I didn't really care what I did outside of that. But it's been preparedness and opportunity that's come across where I've been very fortunate to not be afraid to say yes.
Right.
You know, and you mentioned that earlier where your boss came in and said, dude, if you don't chase this, and you'd even said, I don't want to be that 65-year-old regretting that I never took a shot at it. And Jennifer and I have had that conversation multiple times. We almost moved to South Carolina in 2017. And I accepted a job out there as a social studies teacher. We went out and looked at houses. I had my 2 weeks notice ready to go. It was during the summertime. I accepted the job, went out and looked at homes. And when we went out and looked at homes in Hilton Head and Bluffton, South Carolina, realized real quick that a teacher and a nurse are going to struggle.
Yeah.
If we want to live the same lifestyle we had here as a teacher and a nurse.
Right.
And, you know, in Blackford County, it's a bubble compared to other places. I think the bubble's kind of caught up with us. And I found that out when I started looking for houses a couple years ago. But there was an opportunity, and we had that conversation. Do we want to say no and wish we had said yes? And that was our conversation on the way back from South Carolina was, do we want to be that 65-year-old, 70-year-old that's going, man, I wish we'd have done that.
Right.
And there's a part of me that still says, wish we'd have done that.
Right.
But there's another part of me that says, I ain't dead yet.
Right. Yeah.
I ain't done. I ain't done yet. You know, there's still time, and we still talk about, we love that area. We love Savannah and just that southeast part of the country. We've vacationed out there multiple times. But it's interesting when you said, I don't want to be that old person that has that regret. And that is one thing that has continually driven me. And God bless those that can go and work the same job for 35 years. My dad did it. And the reason behind that was for his family and to create something that he didn't have. And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for his drive and willingness to sacrifice to get there. I've just seen a different way to continue to drive and sacrifice without having to stay in somewhere where I was unhappy.
Right.
You know, and I think for you, it's very similar. It's like, I got an opportunity here, and I'll be damned if I'm not going to grab a hold of it and take advantage of this opportunity that's in front of me right now.
Right.
I think that's a message some people don't hear enough. If you hadn't said yes, you'd still be driving.
Oh, for sure.
You know, you'd still be living above the mouse, maybe, or whatever it might be. You know, if you hadn't seen your buddies at the party getting some attention,
Right.
you know, I was the singer in a band because I wanted the attention. You know, I knew that if I was a bass player, I wasn't going to get it.
Right. But that goes back to what you were talking about, opportunity.
Yeah.
So I was always the type, if I saw an opportunity, I was going to jump all over it. Like Mick telling me, don't hand Billy your CD. Man,
Would you have been able to sleep that night if you had?
no, because I'd have been, man, what if he never hears it? Like, I think this is good stuff. I think he'll like it. I want him to hear it. But I've got his brother that literally can read him like a book, telling me, don't do it. You're gonna cross that line. And I'm like, I got to do it.
Yeah.
And I handed him the CD. I was like, hey man, I don't want to force this on you. I don't even know if you have a CD player in your car. I was like, but here's my first record. And he's like, man, thank you, Jones. I'm gonna listen to it. And dude, sure enough, he called like 2 days later. He's jamming Free to Leave. And that's all, like Mick would legit tell me, man, I was wrong. All my brother listens to is Free to Leave now. And I'm getting tired of it. But yeah, man, it's all about seeing an opportunity, and you either take it or you regret it. And I was never going to be that type of person, because I know how my brain works. If I worked at 3M while I was going to Ivy Tech, I was a summer college hire, and I thought that's what I wanted to do. Like I wasn't really sure if this music thing would work out or not. So I was coming up with plan B, and I was going to school for industrial maintenance and fabrications to be like my dad and be a maintenance man. And I was solely prepared to work at 3M till I retired. And I worked there for about 3 summers and was completely miserable. Nothing against those people. Like, if you can do that, that's
Right.
great. But I can't go in there and do the same job for 8 hours a day, every single day, 6, 7 days a week, 5 days a week, whatever. That, man, I instantly was like, this is not for me at all.
Crushes that creative freedom that you have.
Yeah.
You know, it's what I love about. I loved about being an educator was it went a lot of creative freedom for
Right.
me to be able to do what I like to do, which is I like to talk. I like to interact with people and create relationships. Becoming an assistant principal was the next step in that, I thought, and becoming
Yeah.
a principal was, oh my God, that's where I want to be. And I had aspirations to be a superintendent at one time. I was signed up to go get my doctorate, and someone down in Madison said, "Hey, why don't you just step away from that for a year and be an assistant principal for a year? Just step away from it. You've gone at it pretty hard.
Right.
Step away for 1 year and reevaluate." I stepped away from 1 year and I absolutely loved being an assistant principal, and never went back to get. I was signed up for a doctorate program, but I was seeking my educational specialist in superintendency, and I'm thankful. Looking back now, I'm thankful for someone to mentor me. At the time, I didn't like it, but here's my paycheck person
Right.
that's saying, "Hey, do this. You're gonna trust me on it," and I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
Looking back on it now, I'm thankful for that. I think educator me, was much higher stress than what furniture rep Scott is. That's for sure. The Mr. Schick part of me was starting to weigh on me.
Yeah.
But it was an opportunity I saw and I grabbed it and went after it. It's kind of one of those things where if I hadn't done that, I would have been what if.
So were you more stressed as an educator because of the access that kids have to like social media and they could just make something up about you?
No, that didn't. Honestly, that was so minimal.
Really?
Yeah.
I feel like that would paranoid me, like having to tiptoe around every little kid.
No, no, no. And some of the kids that have had me as a teacher will tell you I didn't tiptoe around very many things. I had one boy, his name was Bill. Bill would get up and shut the door. He knew it was time to shut the door. Just had a look about me, and Bill would just literally get up from his chair, walk over, and shut the door. Kind of nod at me like, "I got you." And he knew it was time. It was time to have a real conversation. And I was very real with my students. I was more concerned about. I carried home a lot of the issues the kids had, and I couldn't just be done at the end of the day. And I think most educators are that way. I won't say all because I don't know all, but I would say the majority that I've met, the super majority that I've met, really struggle with setting it down at the end of the day and just being done.
Right.
And that's where I'm kind of, and I don't want to spill too much in this, but I think for me, I tried to absorb as much of that pain, grief, suffering, frustration, anger, whatever that might be, however they labeled that, and tried to take it upon myself to help them find a solution for it. So I've carried around. I mean, there's still stuff I carry around now.
Sure.
And I'm 5 years away from that kid. That kid's graduated and moved on, and so for me, that was the biggest stressor. I couldn't just let it go.
Right.
The frustration of just the lack of understanding for what really happens in a school. For what, and I'm not talking about the day-to-day stuff. I'm talking about the kids that are coming down that are really going through some shit that should never encounter some of the things these kids encounter. No kid should ever encounter.
Right.
No person should really have to encounter, but they're going through it, and they're prisoners in that. You think about a kid has no control.
Sure.
And I never really understood where my frustrations as a teenager came from, but I think a lot of it has to do with you are not in control. You are a prisoner of your situation. And if you're unhappy with even a portion of that, you're going to focus in on it. Our brains tell us to do that as kids. And it's the same thing as we become adults. We start focusing in on those things that frustrate us. And if you're not willing to do something about it, or if you don't know how to do something about it, you're trapped.
Yeah.
And you either accept that identity or you make a choice and you go do something else.
Right.
And for me, it's always been I've never been one to keep my mouth shut. I mean, your Grandpa Jones, I can remember at a coffee one time, me telling him, Uncle Bob, will you please stop talking so somebody else can? And I was probably 16 at the time, you know?
Probably threw a donut at you.
Oh, man. Oh, he was madder.
Stay in your lane, Scott.
That's pretty much what it was, you know. I remember everybody around the table was like, "Ooh, what's going to happen
He
now?"
just said what everybody else is thinking.
Uh-huh. Well, yeah. But you know, I'm thankful for all those moments in my life because it helped steer me to where I am today.
Right.
And I'm I just keep my mouth shut a little bit more today. And when I'm not on this show anyway,
Yeah.
I see some things happen and I just kind of,
Scroll on.
yeah. I used to have to make comments on things on Facebook. There's very few that I make comments about on Facebook and social media now. Typically, when I get to the point where I'm like, this person's an absolute idiot, I'll just put verified.
Fact checked.
So
It's good.
I did that recently. You're like, okay, verified. I just verified. There's absolutely no way this person has an open enough mind to see any part of their
Right.
idea as not being reality. And so I think for me, I learned a lot. I just apologized to a gentleman the other day who I'd gotten into, not an argument, but I had got really short with them. And it was 2015. This person had asked me a question, made a statement. I got very short with him and just kind of, not blew up on him, but definitely made him aware we're not having this conversation because I don't want to have it.
Right.
And I saw that fella and I told him, hey, look, man, I know the way I handled that was very different Scott that handled that than the Scott that, is talking to you today, and I wanted to apologize. And I hold on to stuff like that. And that's part of my issue with being an educator.
Yeah.
It was affecting my heart. My blood pressure was going all over the place. I was seeing numbers that for some people, it's like normal function. But for me, I'm a 120 over 80 guy or whatever it is,
Right.
That's me. Dude, I was in the back of an ambulance with 120 over 80 after I rolled my truck. I typically can stay pretty, yeah.
Yeah.
But here I was having to leave school in the middle of the day because I felt like my heart was going to pound out of my chest and that it was hitting so hard. And I go and get my blood pressure taken. They're like, dude, are you on medication or anything like that? And I'm like, no, there's something going on. Yeah, I'm worried about this kid.
Right.
I'm worried about this family. I'm worried about, how can I help this girl who has no support at home and
Right.
there's nothing I can do about it. And I'm trying to keep her at school because I know that's the safest place for her. And I've got 20 other people that are telling me, why is she still here when I'm trying to tell them because at home it's worse.
Yep.
And if we're going to help her, she needs to be here. And that was very difficult because as a principal, I want to support my teachers, but I also have a responsibility to make sure those kids are taken care of too. So I struggled with that.
Yeah.
And that was my biggest struggle last year as a principal.
I remember when COVID hit, and we were doing all this e-learning at home, and what you just said, I never thought about school is a safe place for some of these kids.
Oh man.
This is the 6-7 hours where they don't have to worry about getting beat.
Right.
And now here they are stuck at home all day having to do e-learning. And if the parents were stressed out before, man, imagine how stressed out they are now that they got to be on top of their kid e-learning. Imagine the beating they're getting now.
Right. And the beating they're giving to the educator as they go, this is stupid.
Right.
Oh my God, I can't believe we're even doing
Right.
this. They can't even,
It's not our job.
this is dumb. I can't believe they're giving you this.
Right.
How are you supposed to figure this out? That's crazy. Why are we even learning algebra? Blah, blah. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So then when those kids come back to school, all they've heard for that semester was how dumb it is,
Right.
how dumb the teachers are, how ridiculous it is that they had to do school during that time. So, not all of them,
Yeah.
not all of them, but more than there would have been,
Oh, for sure.
so they weren't getting that. And, it was a tough time. It's a tough time to be a teacher and an administrator for sure. I'm thankful for it.
Yeah.
I absolutely, just like that wire mask behind you, I'm thankful to have gotten to know those kids. I'm thankful to been able to be there for them in the mornings to say, good morning, Madison Junior High. Good morning, Oak Hill Junior High. Like that was
Right.
man, I love the mornings. I just saw a post on Facebook about car riders at Madison drop-off line. I don't know if you've ever done drop-off line or not. My drop-off line ran smooth, brother. I'm out front and I'm waving cars in. I'm telling kids get out of the car. I'm opening doors.
Oh,
I'm
dude.
standing in front of people going, "Hey, get your kid out the car. Let's
You
go."
need to
It's
go
not-
over to Yorktown and take that one over. It's insane.
Is it two kids at a time getting out?
Dude.
That drove me nuts.
So all of their schools are like right in a row,
Yeah.
and there's one road in.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not kidding when I tell you, our kids, if they miss the bus and we got to take them to school, they're going to be late. And we live 5 minutes from the school. But if we're not, they got to be there like 8:10. And if we're not in that line by 7:15, I'm not kidding. I crap you not. They're going to be late.
Wow.
Dude, it is the most ridiculous thing that I've ever seen.
It was different for me. My mom did take me to school, but she took like 6 of us to school.
Right.
She was like the neighborhood bus.
Oh, yeah. Took all the neighborhood kids.
Yeah, and God bless her. Taking me to school was a challenge. 'Cause I wanted to be the jokester all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, my mom wore a wig for a long time. I don't know if you knew that. Yeah, so you were very young at the time. So, but I bet when I was 12, she probably stopped wearing a wig and let her natural hair grow out. And which she had beautiful hair. She had great head.
Yeah.
But she wore a wig forever. And we're in the back of the car one time. It was me and Ryan Kuykendall, Chris Beckley. I'm not sure if Jason was with us or not. Whoever was with us, we're on our way to William Reed. And I said something to him about my mom wears a wig. And they're like, no way. No. I said, yeah. I'm sitting behind her and just went, pulled her wig off on the way to school. Oh my God. My mom, I don't know how I still live, brother. That tells you how wonderful of a person she was. How am I still alive? Can you imagine doing that to your mom?
Oh. There's one time my mom and we were riding in the car. I don't know. I was driving, so I had to have been at least 16 or 15 or 16. And do you remember that milk the cow thing where you could take your pinky and it's the most painful thing in the world where you bend your pinky like that
Oh, yeah.
and you smash it? It's terribly painful.
Yeah.
Well, I did that to my mom.
Oh God.
And she turned into that dude right there, Rocky. And I'm not kidding, man. Closed fists and all. It's the only time my mom ever like
Right.
hit me.
Yeah.
And she backhanded me, dude, right in the mouth. And we were in our driveway. We pulled in, I put it in park. She goes, "You get your ass inside right now, young man. I'm going to make your life a living hell." And I'm like, "Mom, I'm just kidding. It's just a joke." And just like crying my eyes out. Dude, I couldn't imagine if I pulled her hair off,
Oh God.
what she would do.
In front of the neighborhood. I mean,
Right.
Yeah, because we had like 4 people in the car on our way to school. So she's going to the drop-off line too. You know what? So it wasn't like
I
we were,
can't believe your mom. What was she wearing a wig for?
I don't know. Just that beauty standard everybody,
Yeah.
everybody holds themselves to. And yeah, I don't know why, because I mean, she had wonderful hair.
Yeah, she had great hair.
Addison ended up with her hair, I think. She has big, full,
Curls.
not curls. My mom didn't have curls. She had to curl her hair. Like she went
Yeah.
to bed with curlers in. But Addison used to wear she'd wear a bow in her hair when she played volleyball. And man, it looked like my mom out there playing. That's because they had the same
That's
type
cool.
of hair, big full hair. That was one of my favorite things to watch.
That's
was her
cool.
playing volleyball. But you've come a long ways from Hartford City to Nashville to Sydney to
Yeah.
back to Muncie and California, Pebble Beach, man.
Yeah.
How cool is that? So you spent a lot of time up around Wisconsin. Sounds
A
like
lot.
getting some airplay up in Wisconsin. We got to talk about that. We haven't even
Yeah.
hit on it.
So, yeah, I get like reports through my digital distribution company, and it basically tells me like, here's how many songs are being played on the radio, here's how many radio stations, and it'll break it down. And I think the last time I checked, I was on 26 different radio stations throughout the Midwest. What's weird is like I don't know if I'm on any around here. I don't think
Right.
I am, or I feel like I'd have some friends be like, "Hey,
You
you're
think Big John,
radio."
man, what you doing? Come on, Big John.
That's what's what sucks about radio is so like where Big John works, that used to be a privately owned
Mm-hmm.
radio station, so he could pick whatever he wanted to play for the day. Well, now they're owned by, I believe it's Nash
Yeah, I
FM.
think so.
So now, Nash basically says, here's what you're going to play.
Right.
So people ask all the time, like, well, why do they play the same songs over and over and over again? And I don't know if you're familiar with Bobby Bones.
I've heard the name.
He's a huge DJ, country radio DJ. Like, he's one of those, like, if you're on his show, you're going somewhere. Like, he finds all of these incredibly talented people, and then they blow up. Like, I remember watching Chris Stapleton on there years and years and years and years ago before he was Chris Stapleton.
Right. Before the beard.
Yeah. Like, back when he was with Steel Drivers.
Wow.
Years ago. Well, anyway, he put out this video about how radio works, and it's the perfect analogy. So the way it works is you've got all of these record labels, right? You've got Big Machine, you've got whatever Curb Records. So you got all these record labels that are basically like baseball teams. They're all trading cards.
Mm-hmm.
So you got Curb Records saying, hey, I'll give you the number 1 spot if you give us 2, 3, and 4 for a month. And then after that, we get the number 1 and number 4 spot, but you can have 2, 3, and 5. So they're like, okay, they're dealing like that. So then they shove all this money to these radio stations and say, here's what we want you to play.
Wow.
And that's legit how it works. And ever since Bobby Bones come out with that, dude, he has been like blacklisted.
Really?
From the country, from the CMAs, from the country music, everything. Yeah. It's insane. Like when he exposed how it truly works, which we all kind of know, like I kind of knew,
Sure.
like we had quoted one time, and this was years and years ago, like if I wanted to get a song independently on the radio, how much it would cost. And I want to say it was like 2 spins a day for a month was like $200 and some thousand is what it would cost. So you ain't got a prayer of getting something on the radio unless it's privately owned or you've got a record deal. But the good thing now is, I shouldn't say good thing, but radio's kind of dying. Now most people get on Spotify or Apple Play or whatever streaming
It's
it
definitely
is.
changing.
Oh, for sure it's changing.
When people talk about being upset about ticket prices to go see a show, well, listen, we aren't selling records anymore.
Right. Yep.
You're making your money off merch and
Yep.
getting some money from the venue,
Yep.
who is getting their money from ticket sales, or vice
Right.
versa. You got to go sell tickets to the show.
Yep.
And I think people, we're so used to a cheap ticket
Sure.
that it was sticker shock. It was certainly for me, paying $100+ for a ticket to go see Alice in Chains, which I never got to go see. I was having a health issue at the time.
Bummer.
Had great seats, like 18 rows back. Jennifer was, yeah. Anyway, just that was sticker shock.
Yeah.
We didn't pay that back in the 90s.
Yep.
And anybody could go to a show.
Right.
$30, man. You're having a
$30.
great time.
You go to Ozfest and watch 12 bands play for $25.
Yep.
For real.
Yeah.
Like I remember that in high school.
01, 02, or 2000 and 01, went to both of those Ozfests and had a great time there.
Yeah.
It was wonderful shows.
Yeah, I freak out. Like when I'll do if I do a ticketed event, it's typically like a promoter wanting to sell tickets. Like I typically like to ask for a guarantee, and then I'm happy knowing this is what I'm going to make. But if you're selling tickets and you make more than what I'm asking and you get to pocket that, great, we all win. But I freak out even when a promoter's selling tickets for like $20, $25. Like I don't think anybody's going to pay that to come watch me play. But man, up in Wisconsin, I've got an insane following up there. It's great. The last ticketed event that I did, we sold, it was like 120 VIP tickets, and those were $85. And then the rest of the tickets were 25, and we sold 230 tickets. It sold out.
Wow.
230 tickets. That's crazy to me to think
Yeah.
that people are paying that kind of money just to come listen to me play guitar in
How often do you get up there?
Wisconsin.
Yeah.
At least once a month.
Yeah.
At least.
Do you think I've thought about this for a long time. So, God, why don't they come around here more?
Yeah.
Yeah, the novelty.
I get that all the time.
Yeah.
I do. I get that all the time.
If you played here every weekend, that it would wear out pretty quick.
Oh, for sure. I've always said, like, you could have Metallica in your backyard for a year, and eventually you're going to be like, God dang. It's just, come on. Yeah. I get
Real, come on, dude. You gotta have play a cover.
that. Right. Yeah. We're Wagon Wheel.
That's right. Freebird,
But
go on.
there's a couple, like, I do get that all the time. Like, won't you ever play around here? But it's what sucks is I'm going to sound like I'm like playing victim here, poor me. But I don't have the turnout here that I have in Wisconsin and Minnesota and Iowa. Like I really don't.
Yeah.
Like I could play here. Like we just did a full band show in Dunkirk. What was that, back in December?
Yeah,
And there was maybe 70 people
yeah,
show up. So I can't sit here and have this venue and be like, this is what I need paid. And the venue's like, well, I can't pay that because last time you played here, only 70 people showed up.
right.
So, and it's hard.
There is something about hometown. There's a name for it, and I can't remember, but it's like being the hero of your own hometown.
Hometown famous.
Yeah, I mean, there's psychology behind it where people are like, yeah, that's it's Derek,
Right.
it's Derek. Where
Right.
people other places they're like, man, this guy's great.
Right.
He puts on a great show, which you do. You put on an incredible show, and it's more than just going out and playing the music. You entertain, and you're an entertainer, and you're very good at it. Your stage presence lends itself to what you do, and I think that's the appeal.
Yeah.
We can hear that music anywhere else.
Sure.
And Megan was absolutely right. Once you brand yourself and you start creating a persona, a professional identity, then people are going to buy into that.
Yeah.
But it's hard when we all know you as Derek Jones,
Right.
goofball kid wearing too big a, cut off t-shirt.
Right. Yeah.
And
No,
that's
but you're
hard.
right. Like going back to that branding thing, years ago when I was with Billy, I had some shirts for sale, no rhyme or reason behind the shirt. It was just like a flag on the back that said free to leave. And then I had another shirt that I thought was cool. Well, then once I left Billy and Megan and I kind of took over, she's like, we need to find somebody, an artist, to help you brand. So Billy had come out with this record. I don't remember the name of it, but the artwork was insane. Like, it was absolutely insane. And I actually reached out to the guy, told him what I was doing. And he's like, well, the main thing with a merch table is you've got to connect your merch table with the stage. So if you've got a song that these people are connected to, make it a t-shirt song.
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, well, let me try that. And I come out with this t-shirt that had Pray on. I've got a song called Pray that everybody seemed to like. And before I know it, dude, I'm selling hundreds of shirts and making more money on merch sales. So it's funny, like, you go from like me just trying to hustle and trying to figure out this business to actually realizing it is a business, and there should be some kind of strategy. It's not just about playing music and singing and having a stage presence. Like, it's about having an actual brand that people are drawn to.
Mhm.
And that, dude, that has helped me out so much with Megan helping me brand myself, and then also like just staying true to who I am and my beliefs and my morals. And it's a very awesome, interesting business to be a part of.
I think it's something I was touching on a minute ago was, we know you as the hometown guy,
Yeah.
right? That's not just part of your brand. That's who you are.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it very real and, brings that appeal to the other people that don't know you.
Sure.
It'd be different if you're like, I'm just a small town guy. And, you grew up in Indianapolis.
Right.
Very hard to sell small town when you grew up in Indianapolis.
Right. When you grew up in Indy.
Right. And not that Indy's some huge town, but heck, it's like number 12 or
Yeah.
something. I mean, it's up there on the, it's in the top 15, I think, of large cities in America. Hard to sell.
Right.
It's hard. It's going to be real hard for me to identify, cruising down Meridian Street, avoiding all the potholes.
Yeah.
I got orange barrels on the left of me and orange barrels
Right.
on the right. I got a mansion to my left.
Sure.
No, it's not happening.
Right.
I went out and, drank some beer out in the middle of a field. When I was 16, we went out to the center of the universe and just looked at the stars.
Right.
That's real.
Yep.
That you're not going to get that in a big town.
Yep.
You know?
I remember just tons and tons of times where I'm just sitting and like kind of looking where I'm at and being like, I'm from Hartford City. How did I get here?
Yeah.
Like I can remember, especially when I started forming a very close relationship with Billy, and he's introducing me to his friends, and I'm kind of getting into his world. We had went to a party, and I'm sitting next to this dude named Jeff Cease, and him and I got to be good friends. Well, Jeff Cease was one of the original guitar players for the Black Crowes, and he left Black Crowes because of the way that Chris and Rich would fight. He would tell me how awkward it was. And then Jeff Cease, now he's plays guitar for Eric Church. And I remember talking to him, and I'm like, how do you know when you get to that point of like stepping away from your full-time job to give music an actual shot? And he's like, man, you're going to know. You're going to know when it's the right time. And he said, if you're being responsible about it, figure up, are you making more money doing this, or are you passing up more money by not doing this? So I'm just sitting here thinking, how did I get here?
Right.
Like, how am I sitting next to Jeff Cease? I got super close with Billy. So my family always did Christmas, before like the beginning of December. So I just stayed in Nashville. Well, then I started spending Thanksgiving and Christmas with Billy and his entire family. I legit became part of their family. Like his mom would get me Christmas presents and Christmas gifts. Miley invited me to her birthday parties, so I would go to her birthday parties, and I'm just like, what am I doing here? I live out by Lake Placid. Like, this is insane to me.
One of my favorite stories is you coming to my classroom and talking about playing guitar at a birthday party, and correct me if I'm wrong on this. I don't like telling other people's stories, but so Derek is sitting in the front of I'll paint the picture for him. Derek's sitting in front of my classroom. That's homecoming weekend. You were coming home to sing national anthem, and I think you were playing a show after the game.
Yep.
So he comes to my classroom, and I wanted him to come and talk to my kids so that they could see that someone from Hartford City, from Blackford County, can attain something greater than what they see in front of them all day long, which, might be, there's some greatness around us. There is greatness around us.
Oh, for sure.
On a normal basis. And I think we discount that because it's the person we know.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, that's just so-and-so. Yeah. Well, I mean, so Derek comes in, he's telling the story about being at a birthday party and, gets done playing a happy birthday song or something. You want to finish that?
You talking about Miley's?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have a reaction.
So I'm just like, we're all sitting around this fire, and it was for Miley's birthday party, and there's all kinds of people that are there that I don't know who they are, but they look like famous people, and it turns out that it was I've never heard of them. I still don't know anything of them, but the Flaming Lips.
Okay. Yeah.
That guy,
Yeah.
singer, was there. Of course, Miley's husband, Liam. There was this box truck that was parked there, and the back of this box truck was turned into a bar.
Okay.
So I'm sitting back in this bar making myself a drink, and this guy comes up and he's like, "Hey, you want to do a shot with me?" Or that's my best Australian accent.
That was really good.
I'm like, yeah, man, thank you. Sound like Crocodile Hunter for a minute. Look at that over there. So anyway, this guy's like, you want to do a shot of Fireball with me? I'm like, yeah. So I take a shot. I was like, hey, I'm Derek. And he goes, oh, it's good to meet you, Derek. I said, what, can I get your name? And he goes, I'm Liam. And I said, Lim? Like, I legit had no idea who he was, but it was Miley's husband, Liam. What's his last name?
Yeah.
Liam, whatever it is.
I don't know.
But anyway.
I know who you're talking about, but I don't know.
So, so he's like, you play? And I was like, yeah. He's like, get your guitar out. So I go sit by the fire, and Billy's telling me the same thing. Jones, get your guitar out. Let's go. So I start playing. I got done, and Miley comes, and she sits right next to me, and she goes, you mind if I play? I was like, no, not at all. So I handed her the guitar. She played one, and she passed it back. I played another one, and she played another. We sat there, passed this guitar back and forth for probably an hour. I remember I kept the pick.
Okay.
Because my niece, Rylan, was a huge Hannah Montana fan.
Dude.
Massive Hannah Montana fan. Now, don't let me forget, I'm going to tell a story about that too.
Okay.
So I kept this pick that Miley used. I remember I gave it to my niece, and I was like, hey, this is the pick that Miley used to play my guitar. And she was just blown away. But yeah, like going back to the whole, like, how did I get here? I remember when Megan and I first started dating, the first time she came down to visit me. Now, granted, I'd have friends come down quite a bit, and a lot of them would be like, hey, think we could meet Billy? Think we go up to Billy's house? I'm like, listen, it don't work that way. Like, if he calls and he's like, hey, you can come out with you. Yeah, that's great. But he needs to be the one to tee it up. Well, anyway, Megan comes down to visit for the first time, and I'd gotten a call, and Miley wanted Megan and I to come out to her house to watch this UFC fight. So I'm like, well, I got Megan in town. Let me see. If she wants to, I'm cool with it. So I look at Megan, and I'm like, hey, do you want to go out to Miley's house to watch this fight? She goes, Miley who? I said, Cyrus. And she goes, really? I said, no, for real. Like, do you want to go out there and watch this fight? And she goes, no, I don't. She said, I came down here to visit you and get to know you. So that's what I would like to do. And right away, I'm like, I'm going to marry her. Because most people be like, oh, my God, let's go out.
Right.
Oh, my God, oh, my
Let's
gosh.
go.
Man, she was not bothered by it. She had no desire to go hang out with Miley or do any of that stuff. 99.9% of the people, I feel like, and even I'd probably be like, absolutely.
Right.
Let's go. But no, she was like, nope. I came down to get to know you and hang out with you.
Wow.
Let's do that. But again, just kind of going back to how did I get here? I mean, playing shows with, dude, I got to play shows with Charlie Daniels and Ted Nugent, Skynyrd, Jamie Johnson. I mean, you name it, I've probably crossed paths with them at some point in my career. And it's incredible.
So knowing what you know about that side of it compared to what you're doing now, what's the difference? Because I'm sure there are folks on the outside, me included, that are going, dude, you were playing big shows.
Yeah.
And, with big names.
Yep.
What's changed?
I think me not being tied to a record label, because, that for me, I always thought, like, if I want to make it, you got to have a record deal.
Mm-hmm.
And I have found, especially through looking at Billy's World and all of those people that do have, now granted, those are huge name people. For these up and comers, you sign a record deal, that could be devastating.
Sure.
Like, you've heard of Flinville Train.
Yep.
They're from around here. They were crushing it.
Yep.
Then they get picked up by Toby Keith's record label, Big Dog Records. They go on tour, and all of a sudden now their pay gets cut 3 different ways. You got to pay your booking agent. You got to pay your record label. You got to pay your tour manager. You got to, like, all of these people now that you have on your team, they're taking a cut of your money. I don't have that. Like, I'm making a very comfortable living doing my own thing. I get to play when I want. I get to record what I want. I get to release it when I want. I have nobody telling me what I have to do. Jamie Johnson's got a song dude, it's absolutely perfect. He talks about they put him on a shelf, like they signed Jamie Johnson and then put all of his songs, everything up on a shelf, and they're saying, no, we want you to record this stuff, and he's like, no, absolutely not, that's not my music. So he butted heads with his record label. He's still a huge name, but he's got a song where he says, you can find me on the shelf somewhere between Jennings and Jones. And that's such a great line. But for me, learning that you don't need a record label, you don't need a manager. Like most of the time, I wanted to have a manager just so I could say, talk to my manager,
Right.
talk to my booking agent. I didn't need those people.
Right.
It's all like like a social status, I've got a manager. And 90% of the people in Nashville that have a manager that are in my position are just doing it so they can say I have a manager.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need any of that stuff. You don't need a record label. You don't need to be on the radio to make it. Like I'm sitting pretty. I love where I'm sitting right now.
That's why I asked that question, because I could see it. I could see just there is a freeness about the way you get to speak, what you get to write,
Yeah.
where you get to play, when you get to play, and how you manage your profession, your life, and you can intertwine your professional life and your personal life
Yep.
without having I don't know, barriers
Yeah.
or pressure.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, I remember when Megan and I first started dating and she was pregnant with Stevie. I was still touring with Billy. I still had Mick as my manager and Ellen as my tour manager. And the whole time we were touring with Billy, it was always like, no kids were allowed. This is a business. This is not family friendly. Don't bring kids around. And Mick even, I think, he didn't come right out and say it, but when I started playing these shows and I would say, hey, I would love for May and Madden, which are my two oldest bonus kids, I'd love for them to come to the show. No, they have no business being back here. And I'd be like, okay, you're probably right. Man, he couldn't have been more wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I love when I get to take my kids. Dude, I played a show in, where's that? Elkhart at the Lerner Theater.
Mm-hmm.
Opened up for Joe D. Messina. Before the show, I'm sitting there doing sound check, and May and Madden are up on stage. Megan's about to pop. And the front of house sound engineer come up to the stage, and he's like, Derek, you sound really good, but if something were to happen to me, I'm going to need somebody to take over for me. So do you think your son here would want to run this board? And I'm like, absolutely. So he takes Madden back there.
Wow.
And lets him run the knobs and the controls and the slides and all that stuff. And then the lighting guy comes up. He's like, I'd love it if your daughter could learn how to run these lights. So then she's running the lights, not during the show,
Right.
but just during sound check. And man, I'm sitting here thinking, this is so cool.
Yeah.
This is freaking awesome. And at that time, I was shifting from Mick and Ellen to getting another manager. And he was kind of the same way. Like, I don't know if you should have kids back here. And now that I call my own shots, my kids are coming.
Mm-hmm.
If my kids aren't welcome, then I don't want to play here.
Right.
I got into it a little bit with Dwight Yoakam's people. I was doing a show with Dwight Yoakam. Seen the movie Sling Blade?
Mm-hmm.
He's not acting in that movie. Like, he is an odd duck.
Okay.
We're doing sound check at this place in Wisconsin. And before I even leave the house to go up there, it's just Megan and I going. The promoter calls and he's like, hey, just to let you know, I know it says in your contract that you get catering, but Dwight and his people don't want the opening act at catering when Dwight's there. So we're just going to give you $40 or whatever, and you can go get you something to eat. I'm like, all right, it's fine. So then we get there, and then the promoter comes up again, and he's like, hey, so Dwight don't want anybody backstage, period. So we had to pull your green room. There's a hotel across the street. We're going to get you up in for your green room. I'm like, okay. Not even 20 minutes later, promoter comes back up. He goes, hey, there's one more thing. And I'm like, what? Does Dwight want me to play in the parking lot to open the show? Like, what could be next? He goes, well, during sound check, Dwight does not want anybody in the facility while he's doing sound check. And I'm like, okay, well, what about my sound check? And he goes, nope, he doesn't want anybody. And I'm like, well, I've got my pregnant fiance right here. I don't want to leave her. He's like, well, she's just going to have to go across the street to the hotel room. And I legit told the promoter, dude, if my wife can't be here while I'm sound checking, then I'm not playing, period. And he's like, well, let me see what Dwight Yoakam's people say. Wow. So he comes back and he's like, he's okay with your wife being here. And it's just like, man, why? Well, how do you get to that level where you're just like paranoid?
Is
like
even
that?
that? Is it a power thing?
No, I think he's got paranoia.
Really?
So like my buddy Chris that I was talking about earlier, he's friends with some of the guys in Dwight's band. And according to Chris and those guys, like the knobs on all the amps are super glued. So the stage volume never changes, and that's all Dwight's gear. So he does not want them to have access to be able to change their volume or their tone.
I'm going to get it to 11.
Yeah, it goes up to 11. Well, it's like 10, but mine's 11. It's one higher. Well, why not just make the 10 a little louder?
Because that's still 10.
But then you don't have 11.
That's right.
It's a great movie.
I love it. I love it.
But yeah, anyway, all that to say, I love where I'm at because I get to call the shots.
Sure.
We had a promoter again in Wisconsin. I did a show. It was just me and a guitar with my buddy Chris Cruzy. And he called and he's like, hey, why don't you turn this thing into a family affair? Bring your wife, bring your kids. I'll get you guys a cabin for the weekend, some indoor water park passes, like stuff like that. It's like, that's why I love where I'm at, because I know if I had a manager or a booking agent or somebody who thinks that they're looking out for my career, they would shut it down and they would say, nope, this is a business. Your kids don't need to be out here with you. Well, you're wrong. I want my kids. I'm away from them enough. Mm-hmm. So if they have a chance to come, they're coming.
That was one of the most difficult parts about my last band and about being a DJ.
Yeah.
And about running sound for others, was just not having my family there.
Yep.
And not that any of us were like, nope, can't have family here. We were open to that, but with what we were doing, I just don't know that I wanted my kids
right
there. You know, I know how rough the crowds would get.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, God, we had bouncers back in the bucket days. We guys would just stand up by the speakers, just keep it calm.
Right.
Got pretty rough. Not so much with Cuffed. It didn't get near as rough with that band, but still, it just wasn't a family
environment.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the places we played weren't. Not that we weren't as a group. We all were. We were all very, I think all three of the four of us were dads and, had significant others. And, we were in that way, but just different.
Yeah.
And then once I was DJing, I'm not going to take my kid to the bar.
Right.
Right. So there it was again. And so Jennifer would stay home. She didn't get to go out.
Yeah.
And then, running live sound, that was kind of the same thing. There were a few shows we did where it was outdoors, or we ran probably the largest gig we did was over at Kokomo for Duke Tomato. And that was, once again, it was a 21 and over event. And
right.
It wasn't real kid friendly either. So that was a tough part for me.
Yep.
I want to be a dad, like I said. I want to be a husband and a dad. So all that other stuff was secondary.
Yeah.
And boy, I'm thankful for the experiences, though.
Sure.
I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot. Learned a lot
Yep.
about me. Learned a lot about other people. And you can't get those back unless you take that shot.
Right.
You can't learn from that if you don't take a shot.
Yep.
Yeah.
You have to take your shot. What'd you say about luck?
It's when preparedness and opportunity. That's when they meet.
Yep.
So that's
Yeah.
that's that vertices where they all come together. And
right.
You have to be prepared, because if you're not prepared, that opportunity is not there.
Right.
You
Or
know?
you won't recognize the
Yeah,
opportunity.
you won't. Yeah, it won't appear to you. And with the work I'm doing now, it was an opportunity that came at the right time. I've got the background to do it and to sell furniture and work with schools, and all the things that I've done in the past
Right.
have like led to what I'm doing now. And um, it's an enjoyable work to do,
Yeah.
you know? So I've been very fortunate for that to come into my lap
Yeah.
unexpectedly. I thought I was going to be a principal forever. I thought I'd be in school administration in some way, shape, or form for the next 20 years or whatever. I wasn't going to be like a Jerry Hoover. I wasn't going to retire at 88. But but I certainly thought I was going to go much longer than what I did. But it's a great opportunity that came my way. And it was right person,
Right.
right place, right
Right
time.
time.
I'm prepared for it. I understand it. And um, been very happy doing what I'm doing. Get to meet a lot of cool people, and I get to do this
Yeah.
where I don't know that I would have enough control over my time and schedule to be able to just meet with people and be free enough to say the things I want to say and talk about.
Right.
That's the tough part. Um, so last week I met with a guy that he is an advocate for legalization of marijuana. Couldn't have that conversation if I was a school principal. It'd be very difficult. you
Right.
know? So just a lot of things that come about gives me that freedom. I get to choose what I do. Granted, I work for someone else, but he gives me a lot of freedom to create and do it on my own. So,
Yeah.
uh,
I think that's important, especially if you have a creative mind.
sure.
Like when I first moved back, and I was starting to do full band shows, my band was still located in Nashville. So it got to be where it was logistically, it was rough for them because they'd have to drive 5 hours to me and jump in the van. And then now we've got a 7 hour drive to Wisconsin or wherever. So then I started finding guys around Indiana, and that has always been my big thing. Like if I have an audition for a guitar player and he's like, "Do you want me to learn the solo that's on the record?" And I'm like, "Absolutely not. I want you to play whatever solo or whatever you feel. That's what I want you to do." I love, like, every show of ours is different because my drummer don't always do the same fills. My guitar player don't always do the same, guitar licks.
Mm-hmm.
Bass player don't always do the same bass run. But it's always creative, and I don't ever want to restrict that creative process
Right.
from my guys. So that's awesome that your boss gives you that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's meaningful to me.
Yeah.
It's something that, and I've been very fortunate with only one time as an educator where I felt controlled.
Yeah.
Melissa Blossom was my first principal that said, do it your way. And I'm very fortunate and glad that she was there to support me in that way and recognize, hey, this guy, he's different. I'm not like other educators. I'm not like other teachers. I have my own style, and not that all teachers are robots, they're not,
Right.
but there is a traditional style of teaching that I just don't possess. I'm different in how I approach it, and she recognized that and basically said to me, "I need you to do it your way.
Yeah.
Quit. You're holding back," and she didn't want me to hold back.
Right.
So it gave me a lot of creative freedom to do some really cool stuff with kids and become, the teacher I was. And not that I was great. There's things I was terrible at as a teacher.
Right.
But there were some other things I was really good at, but it was because of her allowing that. And then that bled over to when I became an administrator. I was that administrator that was telling teachers, do what you're passionate about. Chase your passion.
Right.
I had so many different teachers that I would go in and observe them, and they were talking about something that they cared about, and it just oozed out.
Right.
If you didn't love what you're doing, people are not going to go.
Right.
They're not going
They're
to
gonna
buy
see it.
They're not going to want to come see you. They're going to, that dude's a poser, you know?
Yep.
So, and it's the same thing with anything you do. If you're passionate about it, it's going to ooze out of you. And so I would see a teacher doing something. I'd be like, chase that. That right there, you love that.
Right.
That's something you're interested in. And your kids, they were sucked into it. And it's like a vacuum, man.
Right.
It just pulls people in. And then I tried to do that as a principal as well. One of my teachers to chase that passion. And that's what I did. I mean, as an educator, I was chasing my passion. But now with this, it's like now I go out and I tell principals and superintendents, facilities directors, dude, I get to go see some really cool stuff. I want to be a resource for you, and it's genuine.
Right.
I want to be able to share what I'm seeing at other schools, because as a teacher, you know, someone that works at a school, you're not going out and visiting other schools and seeing the cool shit that's out there.
Right.
Some really cool stuff going on at different schools. You know, just like you, it's very difficult if you don't watch someone else, you're going to get into, well, that's just Derek Jones live, and that's the way we do it, and
Yeah.
it's going to become a grind. But by allowing those guys to have their voice come through,
Yeah.
it's going to let them be passionate and have fun and enjoy what they're doing and be creative and be free. And, you know, even though we've got a set list, I get to create within it and
Right.
make it fun.
Yep.
You know, and give my flavor to the audience. I
Exactly.
think that's important. It's what I like about this. I don't have an agenda.
Right.
You know, I'm very interested in other people and learning from it. Life's awesome, man.
It is.
Life is an awesome thing, and to share with others, I think is just incredible. And you can do that every weekend. You're
Yeah.
out there and just sharing. You know, you're having fun
great.
up there.
Oh, I have a blast.
Yeah.
I absolutely.
Thought it was interesting that out of, you know, I thought there was probably 7,500 people at Dunkirk that night. I recognized when you were dancing around in somebody else's underwear as you were singing, and
I remember that part of the show.
and you're like, we caught eyes. I was like, what? How do you connect with your audience is really really natural. It's not forced.
Sure.
It's well practiced.
Yeah.
But it's not forced.
Yeah.
And there's a difference in that where it's like, I got to interact with the crowd.
Oh yeah.
God, I got to.
Man,
And there's folks out there that's a struggle for them. And I'm sure there are nights when it is a struggle.
dude. So I got to tell you this. I probably shouldn't, because I know I'm not going to live this down. And the guys in the band, I'll still get a random text from everybody in the band about this one. But so with Billy, the way our show would go is I would come out with just me and my guitar. I would play 3 or 4 songs. Then I'd bring the band out. And we always did usually like Marshall Tucker or Allman Brothers or something like that. That song would over. It'd be a big ending, you know, like we'd drag out the ending. And then I'd be like, ladies and gentlemen, y'all please welcome my boy, Billy Ray Cyrus. And he'd come walking out on stage and we'd go right into a Billy song. So we're in Australia and we're playing this festival, and those folks over there drink like you would not believe. I mean, it's like beer for breakfast, and their beer is twice as strong as American beer. So we're playing this festival, and it starts at like 9 o'clock in the morning, which I think is very odd. And we're the headliners. The person that's playing right before us is legit like the Garth Brooks of Australia. And he's got the crowd just hyped. And I'm looking at Billy. These people are just wasted. Cannot wait for Billy. And I'm looking at Mick thinking, hey, dude, I said, I don't think it's a good idea for me to go out there and bomb this crowd, because they don't know who I am. And I'm just going to go out there with just me and my guitar and play. I don't think it's a good idea. And he's like, nope, it's going to be great, man. You're going to do good. I get about a minute into my second song, and this lady right up front just starts yelling, hurry up, shut up. There's other guys chiming in, we want Billy, what the fuck is this? And I'm like, dude, I'm legit panicking in the middle of my song. And then all of a sudden, the entire crowd just starts chanting, Billy, Billy, Bill. I'm trying to play. I get done with my second song, dude. I legit put my guitar down, walked off stage. I walked up to Mick. I said, dude, that's fucking horse shit. I legit said this was a bad idea. That was terrible. I'm done. That was the worst moment that I've ever had. I was very connected to the crowd right there.
Yes, you were.
But then there's other times, man, where we'd be in front of 10,000 people and I'd walk out and I would just have them in the palm of my hand.
Right.
10,000 people, you could hear a pin drop as I'm telling a story about this song. That's incredible for me.
I always felt like when it was scripted, when I was over scripted, that I was forcing it.
Yeah.
But when I just spoke from my heart
Yep.
and left enough, so I would give a before like beginning of year conversation with my students, and then end of year conversation with students, and I did it at different levels as a teacher, as an AP, and as a principal, and I left enough room in it to talk to them about the things that they were grabbing a hold of.
Right.
And I also left enough room in it to let go of the things they didn't give a shit about,
Right.
so that I could connect with them and build that relationship. That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know, that lady, she wanted you to hurry the fuck up, and you were
Oh.
listening, and she appreciates you. I just wanted you to know that.
No, she don't.
Yes, she did. She wanted you to hurry up. You did.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, she's probably,
She's like, man,
that guy was great.
Derek, that Dirk James guy was awesome.
I was so uncomfortable. I'm not kidding, dude. I never felt like, what do I do? I'm not playing another one.
Oh, wow. Wow.
I'm done.
Man, what an event.
Oh, it was like Billy came out and we ended up crushing it and had a great time. But man, I have never felt more like, I should probably just be driving a truck right now in my life than that moment right there.
Oh,
It was terrible. It was terrible. But then again, like I said, man, there's the flip side of it where you can have a crowd in the palm of your hand. You could say anything and they'll laugh at it,
right.
But as long as you're being honest and like what you said, and you're being honest, you're speaking from the heart, man, you can,
Yeah.
I'm 100%. Megan says all the time that I am addicted to like booking shows, to that whole fishing thing. But Megan's, and I am addicted to playing.
Yeah.
I'm addicted to that feeling. I've always loved, even as a kid, you can probably remember, look at me.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, everybody, look over here what I'm doing. Look at me.
Do you think it's a youngest thing?
Really?
Bill's not like that.
Really?
Bill's not a look at me kind of guy.
Yeah, Ryan or Jason's definitely not.
Joe is a little bit, but not to the level I am.
Yeah.
I mean,
I've always loved being in the spotlight. And I still do. Like, I'm not going to admit, like, I want everybody looking at me.
yeah,
Like, look at me, listen to me.
yeah.
Always been that way. And it's such an addictive.
It's not a toxic thing though. It can become
don't think
toxic.
so.
It can. I could see where I could become very toxic in me seeking that.
Yeah.
But-
I've always said, like, if music doesn't last, it scares me to death.
Yeah.
Because I know I'll be miserable without it. And it's like, you see all these cover bands. Some of these cover bands around here are fantastic, but I don't want to be a cover band.
Right.
I'm not going to be happy if I can't do my original stuff and I'm like, okay, I got to go back to work, but I can still be in a cover band. That's not going to do it for me.
Mhm.
It's not. Like, I want to be in front of thousands. That's toxic. I think having that mindset
Sure.
of like the what ifs.
What is it? I don't know if it's toxic.
I think it's negative thinking.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you allow it to become I'm not gonna picture myself as successful if I don't have that. If you get there, that's gonna be tough.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you don't have that type of thought process, you're not going to get
Right.
there. So it's a fine line that you walk.
Yeah.
Whereas, if it becomes I'm a loser,
Right.
that's very different than, all right, what do I got to do next?
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
what do I got to do now? That didn't work. Now what?
Yeah.
And I think there's a big difference between the two. There's a huge difference between the two.
Yeah. And I think that thought process. So like when I was driving a truck for Pepsi, I hated it. And it made me grind even harder to be successful at music. I hated working for Pepsi. We started at 4 a.m. I wouldn't get done until 6, 7 o'clock. By the time I got home, it would be 8 o'clock. Then I'd turn around and have to drive an hour back into town to play for an hour or two, then get home at 10.
Were you just busking?
No,
Okay.
I did some writers rounds.
Okay.
I had a spot at a place called The Row.
Yeah.
I played there. I think it was like every Thursday.
That's why I was wondering if that's where that guy was like, "Hey, you just run my entertainment." Was that it? Or
No.
Okay.
No, that was a different spot. But then, so I I drove a truck for Pepsi for like 4 or 5 years. And then I quit and switched to a different company, US Foods. And it was a lot, their mindset reminded me a lot of how Pritchett was. Like, they knew my goal was music. They knew that they were just a stepping stone to where I needed to get, because I knew I hated that job. I knew I was going to, if I got it, I was still going to hate it. But I didn't want to find a job where I was comfortable, because then I thought, well, I don't really need music.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm good. I got a good paying job.
Right.
No, I wanted a job that I was miserable at, that I hated it. I hated waking up. Dude, I woke up every morning, and you see those videos on TikTok where like people are screaming on their way to work. That was me, like legit screaming, punching my steering wheel,
Oh, God.
hating my life. But then I'd get off work, I'd get home and grab that guitar, and it was like I was a totally different man. It was very odd. But yeah, just that mindset of hustle, and doing what you got to do
Yeah.
to get where you want to go.
So what's next?
Super busy this year.
Yeah.
Just to go back to booking my own shows. Last year, my manager / booking agent quit in March, and we had 12 shows lined up for all of 2023
In March.
in March.
Wow.
I was panicking,
Yeah.
like legit panicking. And then Megan and I took over, and we had a pretty full year. And I'm looking at my year for this year, and we have 58 shows already
January.
in January.
Yeah.
I've got shows clear into October, November, I think
Wow.
is the last one. But so it's going to be a crazy busy year. I've got three new songs that are in the pocket that I'm going to release this year. I went back and forth of whether to release an EP or just do singles. And it's funny keeping your eye on how things work. Now it just seems like what's working are people releasing singles. Unless you're like Morgan Wallen, where you can release a 4-disc, 48-song album. Like, no one else is going to be able to do that. So I've got 3 songs that'll be coming out this year. And yeah, dude, just staying busy.
Listen, if you start singing about Meridian Street, orange barrels, and potholes, I'm going to refer back to this, and I'm going to copyright
When
you.
you start singing that song about orange barrels,
Orange barrels.
Yeah,
orange
dude,
barrels.
so when we-
everywhere I go.
when we travel in the band, like all the guys are from Indiana, and we hit a construction zone, it never fails. Somebody will be like, orange barrels, everywhere I go. Look at Larry, Darren, and Daryl standing next to the orange barrel looking back at me.
I love it.
I do too, man.
Classics, man. So, funny story about that. That's, man, Q95. Like, if you weren't listening to Q95,
Oh, yeah.
picking up those funny songs, you're out of your mind. I was talking to somebody about Duke Tomato the other day, and Lord help our Colts, and they're like, yeah, no idea,
Who's that?
no clue. They had no idea.
And they're from here?
They're from here. They're younger.
Are they like
So,
20?
late. I think he might be 30.
Eh,
So he's right there.
yeah.
Whereas, if you knew it, you knew it. If you didn't, you didn't. I mean, it was over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But anyway, so I thought it was interesting. Didn't know who it was, but I always sang. Anytime we went into Indianapolis, I would go, Meridian Street, we are a colony. Hey, hey, oh, hey. And always singing some kind of dumb,
Right.
song from Q95. Well, the girls had no idea where these things came from until like I played them for them, and they discovered some of the stupid quotes and things like that, on their own.
Right.
Addison is in Indianapolis. I don't know, maybe 2 years ago, year and a half ago, and one of her friends from Minneapolis was here visiting, and they go down Indianapolis and they turn on Meridian Street. And she said, just out of the blue, she's like, "Meridian Street, we are a colony." And her friend's like, "What the hell's going on?" Right?
You have Tourette's?
Yeah. So she's like, "Hey, Dad, who's that guy that sings that song?" I said, "Oh, it's Haywood Banks." I said, "I'll send you a link on YouTube." So I sent her a link. She said for the most of the day, they're just listening to Haywood Banks. Toes, hey.
Right.
But they're addictive. You
Oh,
can't
yeah.
get it out of your head,
It's catchy.
I don't know. Just one of those things, man. That's the cool thing about music. Everybody has their own taste,
Yeah.
their own way of doing it, and I love the creative process of it. One of my favorite things. You asked me a while back, do I miss it? Yeah, I miss it. I miss that creativity
Yeah.
of starting from nothing, from just air, dead air, to just a riff,
Right.
to maybe even a full song where we scrap the song, go back, pick up a different riff that happened within that song, and then use it to make the new one.
Yep.
And pull some lyrics from, maybe something I wrote here, or, my favorite book there, or,
Right.
a movie line or something, and just be creative in that way. And I would love to go do it again,
Yeah.
knowing what I know now and the experiences I've had, how much different that would look. But I wouldn't trade the life I have and the family I have
Sure.
for the world.
Right.
There's nothing that I could ever imagine trading for it. And it's the fortunate part is I want to be a dad and a husband, man. I feel like I'm doing a pretty good job of that, and I want to continue it. And all that other stuff was experiences that made me better
Right.
at everything I've done. And I think you've got the same thing going on there where you want to be a musician, and along with that came the blessing of being a husband and a dad.
Yeah.
And you're kicking ass at it too. And you guys are kicking ass as a young couple and figuring this thing out, man.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. You can't listen. There is no book.
No handbook.
There's not. And every kid's different.
Yeah.
And every kid's gonna have their way that it needs to be done. And I've got two that are very different.
Yeah.
You and I were very different than the siblings that came before us. And thankful. I'm thankful for being my own individual, but also getting to learn from those other yahoos, because
Sure.
I mean, there's no way. Like, I'm just thinking of a story here, and I'm not sure. I may get it wrong, so if I do, let me know. But I'm just thinking about that time Derek got caught, or Ryan got caught smoking.
Yeah.
And he had to smoke a whole pack of cigarettes with a bucket on his head. Man, I wish I was there to see that. Did you get to see it?
Oh, I saw it.
See, and
So
I knew you'd have to see it.
Here's the funny part is, so he's sitting there smoking the cigarettes with that 5-gallon bucket on his head. I'm over on the stairs crying, saying, "I can't believe I've got a brother that smokes." And really what was happening was I was stealing his cigarettes, but I'm like so devastated. I can't believe my brother would smoke, and I'm stealing his freaking cigarettes. Ryan and Jason say all the time, "Oh, you're the youngest. You got to do everything. You never
yeah, I
got
got-
punished. You never did this." And I said, No. I learned what not to do watching you guys, so I never got caught
That's right.
doing what you guys were doing.
God.
And that is the truth. Like, I did everything that Jason and Ryan did. I snuck out. I drank,
Yeah.
smoked, did it all. I just never got
Didn't get
caught
caught.
because I knew what not to do.
Right.
I knew not to put my cigarettes in the ashtray of my truck, you idiot.
I got caught with my Andrew Dice Clay tape.
Oh, man. I
My-
forgot about him.
My dad got in the car, and it was a car I shared with my mom. It was our Cadillac, and which we called the welfare wagon. So I had my dice tape in there, and my dad had to take it to work. He gets in the car, Little Miss Muffin comes on. Now being a dad,
Oh, yeah.
when you find that, you're like, what in the hell? Oh, that's freaking hilarious.
Right.
You know, so no doubt he listened to that thing for 2 or 3 days before he finally called me out on it. But when he finally did, he said, "We need to talk about this Andrew Clay guy and tape I found in your car." And I'm like,
You sound like your dad right there. Holy crap.
"It's a lot of work, brother."
Dang, dude.
I said, "Okay." And he goes, "I don't appreciate my wife having to get into a vehicle that has that kind of filth coming out of someone's mouth." And I'm like,
I can't.
I'm really sorry. I've taken that tape and I threw it away. There ain't no way he threw that tape away. That's what, that's what old me is saying. Young me was like, I'm going to die. I'm going to die.
Right.
My dad's about to kill me. So he ends up confiscating man, if he'd have found my 2 Live Crew tapes, oh, brother.
Dude, my mom.
Oh,
So I was big into in high school. I loved like the rock. I loved Pantera.
yeah.
I had a Marilyn Manson
Oh,
CD.
man, I bet that was.
and it was the Antichrist Superstar.
Yeah.
If I remember right, he's like naked on the cover with wings,
Yep.
and it's white, and
Yep.
it's very grotesque. Well, my mom finds it, and it was under my bed, and I'll never forget. She pulls it out, and she goes, "What is this?" And I was like, "Oh, it's Marilyn Manson. I don't care who she is. You're not listening to her." And I was like, "Mom," I said, "that's a guy." And she goes, "That's even more reason why you're not listening to this stuff." And she made me put it in the burn. That's back when you used to burn your trash.
Yeah, absolutely.
She made me put it in the burn barrel. But I thought it was so funny. And she's like, "Well, I don't care who she is." But now that I'm a dad, if I were to find that in Stevie or May or Madden's dresser, I would 100% be the same way. What is this filth?
So I made a decision. I wasn't going to censor my kids. You know what they watch. Yeah, I have control over that. But what they listen to, I was pretty open
Yeah.
to whatever. So come home one day, and Addison's listening to oh my God, rapper.
Is it the Yin Yang Twins?
No,
They're
no.
terrible.
No, it's somebody we all know. Cadillac Grills, Cadillac, move, bitch, get out the
Oh,
way.
yeah.
Ludacris.
Ludicrous.
I'm thinking in my head, it's Chris something is his name. And that's what she's listening to. Well, I was a DJ at the time, so I had everything, like thousands, tens of thousands of songs on a disc. And anytime they wanted to access them, all they had to do was put them on a thumb drive, put them on their iPod, whatever,
Right.
done. Well, that's what she's listening to. And I said, Addison, I'm going to tell you, I made a decision a long time ago that I wasn't going to censor my kids, what they listen to, and the things they watch for the most part. I said, but with that being said, you have a responsibility that your mom and dad are allowing it. That doesn't mean other kids' mom and dads are allowing it. And just because he says it doesn't mean you need to say it.
Right.
That take it as what it is. It's art. It is something that's been created by someone else and their experiences. And that's where we're going to leave it. I'm not going to make you take it off of there, but just know we don't talk like that. We don't act like that.
Right.
And that you have a responsibility as a human being to still be own it,
Sure.
to honor yourself. And that's where I left it. Well, a couple years later, I come home, and her and a friend are in we had like 2 living rooms at the house at that time. And when I came in, her and one of her best friends were sitting in the back room, and they're watching Dane Cook. And have you ever watched Dane Cook's
Oh, yeah.
comedy act? I walk in just at the time when he's squatted over the edge of the stage and using his arm as his member and having a conversation about his junk. And so Addison and her friend are down here, and she kind of looks at me like, oh shit, I'm in trouble. And I see Jocelyn and all her friends who are 3 years younger, so they're like 12, 13.
Right.
They're all running around at another part of the house. Their friends hung out very different. Addison's friends were always quiet, sitting around, chit-chatting. Jocelyn's friends were running around the house and literally running into doors face first. There's a whole story there. Some girl, like, her nose got laid over her face.
Oh,
I thought this kid just broke her nose. No, there's cartilage in there, and it just popped back over. But anyway, so I see this happening, and I said, I don't care if you guys watch it. I told you I'm not going to censor you years ago, and I'm not. But when those kids come back here, they're not ready for that.
right.
And it gets turned off. You understand? Yep. And we went on. And that's how I left it.
Right.
So far, so good. I've had some kids that are pretty creative and enjoy a lot of different things in life and have some pretty cool experiences. So for me, it's worked,
Yeah.
you know, but that doesn't mean everybody
Sure.
needs to be that way. You know what I mean? Everybody raises their kids. That's what I mean. There is not a guidebook out there that's going to
Yeah.
tell you what you need to do next. But for me, because of that experience with my dad, I knew I wasn't going to censor my kids because I didn't want them to have to sneak around with it
Right.
because they're going to get it.
Oh, for sure.
You know, when they get it is important,
Yeah.
obviously. But I was going to get it, and I had it. I definitely owned The Day the Laughter Died, and that double CD, that double tape, never stayed in my car.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know,
It's funny you say that. We were talking to Madden the other day because he's getting to the point where he's about to get his license and he's getting invited to parties, and we had the whole drinking thing. And he's a very straight edge kid. I mean, that kid cannot tell a lie. He'll tell on himself. Like, I'm not kidding. That's the most honest kid in the world. And we were talking about driving drunk because Megan and I saw this video where this 18-year-old kid, 19-year-old kid was just out hot rodding his car. Wasn't drunk,
mm-hmm.
totally sober, but just wanted to see how fast he could go. Straight A kid. Lost control, slammed into a pregnant lady, killed her and the baby, and this poor kid got life. So it's like, okay, does he really deserve that? That's not the story I'm trying
Right.
to tell. But anyway, so Madden's talking about we're talking about making bad decisions, and he's asking about drunk, and do you know you're drunk? And we're like, yes, you know you're
Yeah.
drunk, but unfortunately you can make some very terrible decisions. So I'm like, he's like, well, what about if I'm at a party and other kids are drinking? I was like, man, your mom and I both have been there. We know it's going to happen. If it does, I would much rather you call me or your mom or your dad and say, hey, I'm at a party. I had a few drinks. I'm scared to drive.
Mhm.
I said, buddy, me being mad at you for drinking at the age of 16 will be way overridden by you having the balls and the responsibility enough to call and say, I
Right.
shouldn't drive.
Every time.
Yeah.
Every time.
So you're right. Like when you say like, no matter what, and like you've literally just have changed my entire perspective on how I want to parent that. So I love how you say, I don't want to censor you, but I want you to be responsible enough to know just because they're saying it
Right.
and you're hearing it doesn't mean that you have to say it. And that's not how we act. Like you legit just changed my entire way how I want to parent.
Well, I
Because
appreciate
you're right.
that.
They're going to get it no matter what.
God, I don't know if I'm right. I don't know if I'm
Well,
right.
it seems right to me.
It worked. It worked for us, and it worked for our kids, and I'm sure they appreciated it. You know, it kept the dialogue open between us.
Yeah.
It was one less thing they had to hide.
I like that, dude, because you're right. Like, even though my mom made me burn that Marilyn Manson CD, I still went and got it again.
Right.
I still listened to it. I just had to sneak around it and do something even worse.
Right. Yeah, it opens the door.
Yeah.
And people talk about gateways. I think that's a little bit of a gateway. You know,
Yeah.
when I've got to lie to them or hide something from them, that small,
Right.
what else am I willing to do?
Yeah.
You know, there was a thing I learned at a coaching clinic years ago, and this guy was talking about how he would leave a bowl of candy out in his office. And he told the kids, you're allowed to have, when you come in, you can have one, but you only get one for the season. You can come in anytime. My office door is always open. You can have one. And he didn't do it as a I'm all powerful. He did it as a trust thing
Right.
to teach them, you know, I want to know that I can trust you. I'll give you however many you want. You can have as much as you want, but I'm allowing one.
Right.
I'm allowing one. You can take one. And he said it became a a beginning point in his teams of trust and bonding and honor amongst them. And I think it's very similar in this way where if by me telling her, in my mind, me telling her, I'm not going to censor you, I'm giving you choice, I'm giving you freedom
Right.
to make those choices. Now honor it,
Yep.
be thoughtful in what you do. Because I wasn't going to be told no. You weren't going to be told
Right.
no.
No.
There's no
Not at
way
all.
no.
This is what I want to listen to. I'm going to listen to it.
Yeah. I had a rule in my classroom very similar. Kids love to go to the bathroom in junior high. I gotta go to the bathroom
Oh yeah.
every 2 seconds. They don't have to go to the bathroom. They're either bored,
Right.
they're confused, and they want to get out of the situation. They're upset, something. But I had a rule in my classroom: I would never say no. But if you're going to the bathroom, you're going to put a mark on the board. And kids knew that at the end of the 9 weeks, whatever class had the fewest marks on the board got a pizza party or a donut party or whatever.
Ah,
So it became, they controlled it themselves, where if
Right.
somebody came and said, hey, Mr. Schick, I got to go to the bathroom, I would say, yeah, just put a mark on the board. And they would walk up there and they'd be like, hey, are you sure?
whoa, 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 whoa. Yeah,
Now,
right.
some people would say, oh, that's shaming. Yeah, it's bathroom shaming. No, I disagree with it. It showed them that they have a responsibility as a group. The teaching moment in it was much bigger than the classmate asking them, are you sure? We've
Right.
got 8 minutes of class left.
Right.
But when I had the kid that was doing the pee-pee dance,
Right.
I'd say, hey, Jenny, I need copies. I just sent some stuff to the printer. Here's my printer code. Can you go down to the printer? You know where it's at? No, it's right next to the restroom.
Right.
Can you go down there and get my copies, please?
Right.
And then the class kind of knew too. Like they picked it up. They
Sure.
knew what I was doing. And they'd be like, oh, okay. We don't have to put a mark on the board. He
Right.
gets it. You know, I wasn't going to make this girl pee her pants
Right.
to save the class, you know. Get down there and give me some copies.
Right.
Kind of the same thing with kids. Own it. Don't hide it. Don't hide it. Because if you're gonna hide that, if you're gonna fib or lie, I mean it's a form of lying,
Sure.
you know, when you're withholding. But I didn't want that. I didn't want them to ever feel like they had to lie to me. And I've been very fortunate with it, with both my kids.
Yeah.
So they're pretty cool kids.
You've done good.
I hope so.
You have.
We still, you know, I'm a long game guy. And, you know, when I hear things like that, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, I hear things of people giving, you know, some sort of praise or, you know, you did a good job, or, hey man, that was all. I appreciate it, but I ain't done.
Right.
We're in the early stages, man. My kids are in their 20s. I got a long ways to go.
Yeah.
They'll always be my kids. I had someone ask me, or now that your kids are out of the house and they're adults, are they your friends now? Well, we've always been friends, but I'm their dad.
Right.
And it's different.
Yep.
I don't want them to see me as a friend. I want them to see me as their dad.
Right.
And because your friend is going to take you to the party and leave with someone else. That's what friends do.
Sure.
Friends ditch you. Friends piss you off. Friends
Right.
let you down. It happens. And I know that, oh my God, you got a terrible thing about friends. No, but I'm realistic. I'm their dad. I'm not going to leave them at the party.
Right.
I'm not going to forget about them. You know, I do forget about calling my wife back at times, but you know what I mean? So I'm their dad. I'll never be their friend. I'm always their dad. And we can be friends within that.
Right.
And I enjoy spending friendly time with them, but I'm their dad. And I don't know. I guess I've seen enough friends as parents as being an educator.
Oh yeah. I mean, I see that not being an educator,
Right.
where it's like,
How scary is that, man?
man,
You know, you're worried about your kid, you know, listening to Marilyn Manson.
right.
I'm worried about my kid, you know, being too naive to realize that's not just some boy that likes you. That's a boy that, you know, has some bad things going on and is probably
Right.
dealing drugs and everything else.
Yeah,
So yeah, parenting's tough, dude.
it is, man, but it's enjoyable.
I love being a dad.
Dude, I do too, man. It is one of the greatest things.
I love being a dad. There's nothing better.
Me too.
Being a husband's pretty cool. I like that
Yeah.
part too.
I do too, man.
I just wish I had a wife that loved me. No, I'm kidding.
Oh yeah, man. I can tell you, dude. Megan, she's a rock star.
Yeah. Dude, and here's the thing. When I've said this many times on my podcast, I'd be dead in a ditch, most likely. Who knows where Scott is without Jennifer?
Oh yeah,
And ditch would be a likely possibility with the route I was going. And we need that person that gives us cause.
Yeah.
That gives us a cause to chase after. And I am about pursuing the best life for her that is possible. And I can see it in things you've said too.
Yep.
You're doing the same. It is about creating the best life possible for that significant other, that person that loves you, and that person that sees something in you that no one else has before.
Yep.
And maybe other people thought they did, but I don't. There's a difference. And I learned it from my mother. And I hate repeating myself, but I got to tell you, my mom edified my dad in such a way that I knew I was not first on her list.
Yeah.
I knew I wasn't. And she said it. I chose him. I had you. I can make another you.
Right.
Boy.
Wow.
And as a 10, 11, 12-year-old, when I heard that, I was probably 12, that hurt. But I knew where I stood.
Right.
And I think there needs to be a little more of that and a little less of I will lawnmower parent you,
Right.
and to the point to where you're helpless.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening.
Right.
I see a lot of it.
Yeah.
I see a lot of great parents out there.
What are they called? Helicopter parents.
Yeah, helicopter parents is the one that hovers.
Hovers.
I call them, there's a helicopter parent and then there's a lawnmower parent. The lawnmower parent goes along and cuts their legs out from underneath of them. So they can't do anything
Right.
without their parent. There's the Gypsy Rose story. I don't know if you've heard about this or not. I just learned of it this weekend. Gypsy Rose, something. It's
Is that girl that was like
Munchausen.
paralyzed or whatever, but she's really not?
Right.
Yeah.
Ends up, her boyfriend kills her mom.
Yep.
And, yeah. Dude.
Right.
Cause like, just as you wanted to have that Marilyn Manson CD or tape, was it tape or CD?
CD.
Yeah, I figured. Just as you wanted to have that and have the freedom to choose that, you still felt a little bit of shame in having it.
Yeah.
You knew that
Oh,
there was
for
trouble
sure.
coming, but you still went out and got it.
Right.
Well, magnify that times a million, and that's what
Right.
this girl was going through.
For sure.
To where her mom literally paralyzed her, to where she knew if she got up and walked out of that wheelchair, her mom was going to beat her ass.
Right.
And she was going to lose her best friend, which was her mom not wanting to lose another person in her life. They didn't go into the psychology of the mom in the show I watched.
Right.
But boy, I'd love for him to, because there was a lot of psychology in that mom of she was so fearful of losing a loved one in her life that she paralyzed her own daughter to keep that there.
Right.
And that is not our job as parents. Our job as parents is to make another human being that can go out there and conquer,
Right.
their dreams, the world, whatever it might be. Hopefully they don't conquer the world. That would be, I would feel pretty terrible about that.
But just
but
be a positive human
positive,
in society.
yeah. Just
Yeah.
a good person, a good human
Yep.
being.
There's Megan and I, we have these deep conversations a lot. And we're at the stage in our life where if you're toxic, even if we're friends, if you're toxic, I don't want you in my life.
Yep.
I don't want to get too deep into it, but I'm going through some issues with my dad, and I have cut him out of my life because he's becoming toxic. We watched this video the other day where this guy describes people, and it's to me it's perfect. He says there's two types of people in this world. There's batteries, there's vacuums. He said those batteries give people life. They're out there pushing people, go, go, go. They're rooting for you. Those are the kind of people that you need in your life to be successful and to be positive, and they're always rooting you on, and they're a joy to be around, and you want to be around batteries. Then there's vacuums that just suck the life out of you, that after 2 minutes of being around, you're exhausted.
Yep.
And you got to put in so much effort to be around them and be friends with them. And man, I'm at the point in my life where I'm surrounding myself with batteries.
Batteries, brother.
For real.
Batteries.
Because if I want to keep going and be successful, even as a musician or as a dad or as a husband, I don't want to be surrounded by negativity.
Sure.
Because then you pick up on that. Then you become what you're surrounded by. Perfect example is, dude, when I was with Billy has this chip on his shoulder with Nashville. He does. Like, he can't stand Nashville. And he said all the time, F Nashville. I hate it, and I hate it, and I hate it. And then I started to feel that way. And I started to be like, you're right, man. Fuck this town. We don't need this town. Stupid town. Man, I miss the shit out of Nashville. And I looked at it the wrong way. He was a vacuum in my life. And at the end of the reason I separated was because I broke my elbow and my arm. But Mick and Ellen started to become extremely toxic. Megan was pregnant, and I was being told, don't have that kid. Do not have that kid. It's going to ruin your music. You do whatever you got to do, but do not have that kid. I was in Vegas. I haven't shared this story with hardly anybody. I don't even know if my mom knows this story. I don't even know if I can get through it, honestly. Megan was pregnant. I was still living in Nashville. She was 3, maybe 4 months along. I was playing a show in Vegas. This is when I was being told, don't have the baby. I talked to Megan early in the morning, and she was feeling super sick. Just didn't feel right. Later on, she called about 30 minutes before I'm supposed to start. She had a miscarriage, and it came out. I was devastated because I was so excited to be a dad. Could not wait. And I'm getting ready to take the stage. And keep in mind, Mick is my best friend. And he comes up. He's like, you okay? I said, man, I just got off the phone with Megan. She had a miscarriage. He goes, oh, wasn't meant to be, was it? Get out there and put on a good show. And I'm just like, man, you have become so toxic to me. So I don't speak with that crew anymore. Mick and Ellen, they treated Megan like absolute shit. So I cut them out of my life. But I guess all that to say is you get to choose who you're surrounded by. Man, I want to be around batteries. I want to be around positive people that encourage me, not freaking vacuums, not vacuums at all. It's just funny. Like, the older you get, the smaller, as a 20-year-old, you think, I've got 100 friends, man.
Right.
I'm so popular. Life is good.
Right.
The older I get, dude, the smaller my circle gets. And I am okay with that.
Yeah.
Like, I've got probably 4 super close friends that I know will have my back no matter what. I'd rather have 4 of those than 100 of, I don't know if they'd have my back. But
100%.
Just to go back to what you were saying about your wife, she brings out the best in you.
100%.
I have learned so much about this phase of my life. Even though Megan's younger than me, mentally, she's way more mature than I am. Like, she is rock solid about I don't know if she coined this, but she says it all the time. Your vibe, your tribe is your vibe. And I love that. She says that all the time. The other thing she says all the time is, if you're blessed, be a blessing. I love that.
Yeah. I like it.
So I'm 43 years old, and I'm still trying to figure out, how to do this whole adult thing, and learning that she is bringing out the best of me. Even though I've cut some friends out of my life, cut my own dad out of my life, I'm in a much better spot mentally than I was 2 years ago because of her.
It's hard. It's hard as a people pleaser.
It is
to do that, because we're people pleasers. We're someone who doesn't want to lose a friend.
Right.
We want to be liked.
Yeah.
think as I've gotten older, I had a question asked me a couple years ago. I was interviewing for a principal position, and they said, "Is it important to you to be liked?" And I smiled because I understand the psychology of persuasion, and to be able to persuade, to teach, to be a positive force or a force. Doesn't
Right.
have to be a positive force. People can persuade and be a negative force or just but to have some sort of impact on someone, they need to like, trust, and respect you.
Right.
So the person that was asking the question, I kind of chuckled, and it probably was one of the reasons I didn't get that job, which I'm glad for. I'm very
Right.
happy the way things have turned out, but I kind of chuckled and I said, "Of course it is. Of course it's important to be liked. We all want to be liked, but I think it's more important to be respected.
Yeah.
To be respected for someone who I am willing to risk being liked because I'm willing to risk being liked for the sake of being known as someone who stands or that believes in something strongly enough to risk that relationship."
Right.
And I went through some things with my dad for a while after my mother passed. There was some things going on I wasn't happy about. I didn't think it represented him as who I thought he was and what he had taught me and the relationship he had with someone else. And I wasn't mad about it, but I felt disappointed.
Sure.
I felt like that's not the person I knew. The person that I knew, the person that took my Dice Clay tape that my mother loved, that taught me what being a man was about, or at least I thought,
Right.
was teaching me that, was now doing something that just totally was against all those principles and morals that I'd been taught to for 30 plus years of my life.
Right.
And so he knew whenever he would bring up this other person that I didn't want to hear about it. And I would change the subject as fast as possible or just shut down.
Right.
And he came out and talked to me one day on my porch about it. I was painting my porch and he said, "I know you're not very happy about the relationship I have with this person and blah, blah, blah. And I don't understand why." And I told him exactly what I just said. I think it goes up against everything you have taught me about being a quality human being. There are other people at play that are being hurt by your relationship
Right.
that don't deserve to be. Well, they have a terrible, it doesn't matter. What's going on in someone else's relationship has absolutely nothing to do with mine. So as you're talking about your dad, I'm thinking about that. And it's hard to be able to remove yourself from, and I don't know what, and I don't want you to share that. That's up to you. But I think I've learned to be able to keep distance and to be able to compartmentalize, I guess is the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
I compartmentalize that into another part of my dad and I's relationship. It was part of our adult relationship, and that's where I left it. I think yours is deeper than that.
Yeah.
Because it runs much longer, much deeper into the whole facets of your family. But I was able to compartmentalize that component of my dad's life and our relationship and just set it aside.
Sure.
Only time it was brought up was when he brought it in to the conversation. And then I would shut down and I would
Right.
move away from it.
Yep.
But we had he and I had that conversation, and that's something that I felt very strongly about, and he was aware of it. Very similar to God. Many other times when I wasn't afraid to speak up, when I wasn't afraid to speak up and tell Uncle Bob, "You need to stop talking."
Right.
You know?
Shut up.
I've never been afraid to just say what I'm thinking when I'm that passionate about it. There are other times when I'm smart enough to go, "I don't even need to say anything."
Right.
Everybody else sees how dumb it is.
Right.
I'm not the only one. I'm not the smartest person in the room. I've never been the smartest person in the room. But I'm also smart enough.
Thank you for recognizing that.
Absolutely. Well, Bob's over in the corner. So he's here in spirit. But I recognize when I don't have to be, and I'm willing to just shut up
Right.
and let them be dumb in front of everybody else.
Right.
And it happens more often than
for sure.
than we think. You know, we walk out of a room, we're like, God, did anybody else realize how dumb
Right.
they sounded? And somebody walked, oh my God, can you believe it? Think about how many times in your life that's happened.
Right.
Well, that's happening. You're not the only one that's seeing it.
Sure.
But dude, there's so, man, I would love to go deep in that, but I would love to go deep in it, you know. But anyway, dude, so glad you've been here, man. This has been awesome.
Dude, it's been great.
This has been a record-setting. I think we're close to record-setting time.
Are we really?
If not, yeah.
What's the record? What time is it?
I think it might be Pete Lentz might have the 2:41. His was long, but yours is definitely distinguished. You know, my list is long but distinguished. You remember that movie? The list is long but distinguished. It was from Top Gun.
Oh, I haven't seen that in years.
Man, it's one of those ones where it's just, I'm surprised I don't have a movie poster. If I could find one, it would be in here. Spent a lot of time watching that movie. Big fan. But anyway,
Did you see the new one?
yeah,
You like it?
dude, I did.
Okay.
I did. Interesting you bring that up because there are people that are purists, you know, that can't get over something not being what it was.
Right.
I thought it was great. I thought it was as good or better than the original. Just as I and God, I'm gonna piss some people off here. Sorry about that. That came out of nowhere. Demons come out. Yes.
I have exorcised the demons.
This house is clean. But so I saw Pantera this summer at Louder Than Life. A lot of people that have very strong feelings about the current Pantera lineup. I saw them in the 90s. You're looking at me. You're a strong opinion person on this Pantera lineup. I went in with open eyes and an open heart. And because I'm a lover of Pantera, I love Phil, I love
Yeah.
Dime, I love Daryl, I love Rex. Much respect for him. Helped me through a lot of rough times in my life. And you think about music that comes out that you need,
Yeah.
and you hear it, you know. And they were coming out with stuff that I needed to hear at the
Right.
time. I needed to hear it, so they were very impactful in my life, very influential. Probably what led me to becoming a singer. It was Pantera.
Yeah.
So anyway, I saw them at Louder Than Life, and they represented Diamond Daryl in a way that honored them, and the show was as much or more about Diamond Daryl
Cool.
than anything else. It had nothing to do with the two people filling in. But at the same time, knowing that how close, and I can't think of the drummer's name right now. I'm having a moment, but he's from Anthrax. They were very close. He was very good friends. They were all buddies, and how much love and respect that Zach Wilde had for Diamond. So this whole show honored them. And you were talking about allowing your guitar and drum and bass to put their own fills,
Yeah.
you know, and put their own flavor in it. They did, but in a respectful way. They
Tasteful.
didn't lose the natural progression of what you hope for as a Pantera fan.
Right.
That was never lost in the show. If you close your eyes, which I did, it was like I was back in 1996, dude.
Yeah.
It took me
That's
back. When that show finished, throughout the whole show, pictures of the band were all over the screens, man.
Yeah.
And it
That's
was
freaking cool.
every once in a while you'd see a live shot, but if there was a live shot, it was Rex or Phil for the most part. And every once in a while you might see, you know, the other two. But a lot of Dime, a lot of Daryl pictures thrown up everywhere. There was a dime bag, a dime bag tent selling merch. So it's a way for them to continue to
Sure.
earn money for that family.
Yep.
And I'm sure they're taking some proceeds and throwing them that way. I cried when it was over. I just stood there in the middle of it, and we were in it. man, I couldn't have been 20 feet from the stage
That's crazy.
in between two mosh pits. And it was nuts, but
That's crazy.
controlled at the same time.
Right.
You know, just, man, it was it was more than a tribute band.
Yeah.
And that I've heard a lot of people say, oh, it's a tribute band. Dude, it was more than that. And
Right.
I'd like to go see him again and do a full show. We just got to see an hour set. I'd like to see the full show
Yeah.
and really get into some good stuff. They're just playing.
I love Pantera.
Man.
Dude, loved. Remember, here's a cool story. Remember, Dimebag used to play this Flying V.
Yep.
It was a Confederate flag.
Yep.
I got to play that guitar.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah.
Who's got it?
David Allen Coe.
Wow.
Yep. David Allen Coe's got it. Or he has one of them. But yeah, I did played two shows with David Allen Coe. And I just saw an opportunity. I grabbed it and
Wow.
just played it a little bit. Didn't get to play my show with it, but
Right. Well,
it was cool just holding
yeah.
a guitar that
It's meaningful.
Dimebag played.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
My dream is, and this is the first time I've put this goal out here. My goal, my dream is to have a podcast with Phil Anselmo.
That'd be great.
That is my
Like, has him as a guest, or you guys have him
have
together?
him as a guest.
Yeah,
To have a guest and just sit down and have this conversation with him and pick his brain about his life.
yeah.
Just a free, open talk with no agenda, just to see
So
what
have you tried like
I have
reaching
not.
out, like looked at his schedule and been like, you know what? I'm gonna reach out to his publicist. He's in Fort Wayne.
I have not. I think they're coming around to Indy this year, but I have not.
Oh, you got to make it happen.
I know. I even doing a Zoom, but I don't want to do it that way. I
Yeah,
want this, you know. It's the fanboy in me a little bit,
sure.
you know. I would love to have that conversation with him. I'd love to talk to Henry Rollins.
Oh yeah,
Jocelyn just bought me a Henry Rollins book. If I get these stupid trash CDs off. God dang.
I love your coasters. Those are nice coasters.
Well, I'll get you a coaster before you leave. But I've had this book forever. I went and seen Henry Rollins doing his spoken word tour with AC years ago at the Murat. And man, it just blew us away.
Really?
Like, you walk out of there and you're like, I'm a changed man. That dude is intense, man.
I bet.
He's on another planet. But that would be another one. But Phil is the one.
Yeah,
Phil is that. He is the unicorn I'm chasing with this thing. And if it happens, great. If it don't, great. But that's the unicorn I'm chasing.
right.
Yeah. So
That's awesome. Let's make that happen.
well, you know, you got the.
I bet we can make that happen. I feel like we have a shot.
You think so?
Oh, absolutely.
If he hears this, if he's listening, Phil, if you're listening, man.
I bet if you reached out to probably his manager, tour manager, found their schedule and just emailed until you got a response
Yeah.
and just said, hey, I got this Chick show, been a huge Pantera fan.
Well, you never know.
Is there any shot that I could sit down and have just a one-on-one with Phil?
Dude, I would sit here beside myself the whole time. And the reason I'd have to sit beside myself is because I'd have to be going, come on, dude, say words. Say words.
Right. What do you do?
You're locking up. You're blowing it, buddy. You're
Right.
blowing. I'd be like, Ralphie,
Right.
you're blowing it, buddy. Tell him about the BB gun.
Oh, dude, we got to make that happen.
Well, that's the goal. That's the goal. It's got your marching orders, and I've got mine. Let's wrap it up. We got anything else?
That's it. I got nothing else.
Man, I appreciate you coming in, dude.
Thanks
We've been
for
trying to
having
get
me.
this done for a while.
Forever.
I've been talking to people on my podcast and telling them, well, Derek Jones keeps dodging me, but eventually I'll get him in. Steve Hurd just recently said, I had no idea he was your cousin.
Really?
It's because he doesn't say anything about it on stage.
Well, I will if you interview Phil.
Challenge accepted. Dude, great stuff. Everybody, we're out.
See ya.